A very good afternoon. Welcome along to the fourth round of Ferrari Challenge Japan here at the Fuji Speedway. It is wet out there, as has been the story all weekend, but we are super excited to bring you some racing action here first up today from the Copper Shell AM class. My name is Tom Brooks. I'll be your commentator here to guide you through the action. We had race one here yesterday afternoon, a slightly truncated affair as the race started behind a safety car. However, we did get our first bit of green flag racing after the first race in Trofeo Pirelli AM and Copper Shell was run entirely behind the safety car owing to even wetter conditions prior to the Copper Shell AM race. Thankfully, as I said, the Copper Shell AM race, we did get some green flag racing, and this man here, Jay, took his first ever win in the class, in commanding style for that matter as well. And subsequently, he will start this one on pole position here this afternoon as well for race two. Here are some highlights from Jay's qualifying session here earlier on this afternoon. He was on pole by 7/10 of a second, has absolutely commanded things out there on the racetrack here at this legendary Fuji Speedway. This is Bamboo Maeda, who lines up on the outside of the front row alongside Jay, and he struggled quite a bit yesterday. In particular, he was running up in around fourth position prior to the start of the race. You can see though here in qualifying at a big off-track excursion, a spin down at the right-hander of 100R. Thankfully managed to get things righted without hitting the barrier and causing himself or anybody else too much damage, but certainly pushing the envelope. But he started the race in fourth place yesterday and really just sort of dropped as soon as the race got going, to be honest, and subsequently ended the race outside of the points positions. Here there is Jay lining this one up on pole, looking forward to seeing what he is going to be able to do here this afternoon. Very distinctive livery on his car, and now got that monkey off his back with the first win in this category as well, for that matter. An amazing job by the Japanese driver to also then back that up with a pole position here this afternoon as well. As I say, very excited to see what he is going to be able to do here, and you can see also now it means he has a commanding lead in the Drivers' Championship, and he had about 3 points going into this weekend. Now, as you can see, has increased that deficit, or that advantage rather I should say, over Kento Inami, who was a spinner in the opening stages of the race here yesterday, and now has 20 points over him. Koji Yamamoto third in the championship, but not actually racing here this weekend. Tackshaw there in fourth position, and Tackshaw second on the road here yesterday. His first podium in the Copper Shell AM class. The podium then completed by Michael Ungers, who you can see there in seventh place in the championship, the Hong Kong driver. Well, Bamboo Maeda making his way on to the grid then after that spin that we saw for him in qualifying. He'll be hoping to sort of right the wrongs of yesterday. As I said, started the race in a commanding position. He was up in about sort of the top four in the opening stages of it, and then got overtaken as he just struggled to set the pace really of the rest of the field. At one point we saw Jay, who was the eventual winner from yesterday, lapping in around 4 to 5 seconds faster than Bamboo Maeda. So hopefully Bamboo Maeda's been able to make some setup changes to the car, and he's a little bit more comfortable with that machine. The fact that he lines up on the outside of the front row of the grid again is a good indication that he's feeling good with the machine, and as we say, hopefully we'll be able to see him again fighting up the sharp end of the field. There he is in the green, number 159. Not that it's been a bad season at all for Bamboo Maeda, driving in that Corner Shiba machine, because it's his debut season in the class, and he's had a couple of third places in Motegi. Here yesterday, as we say, came over the line in P14, but has steadily been improving as the year has gone on. Well, the clouds still very much overhead here this weekend, and the weather has been a permanent fixture throughout the course of the racing here at Fuji, and indeed pretty much throughout practice and qualifying for that matter as well. As you can see, very low cloud, and as such we've just had confirmation here in the commentary box the race will start once more behind the safety car. It's a safe decision for the drivers, and obviously it's a rolling start here in Ferrari Challenge Japan anyway, so it's a case of as soon as the safety car pulls away from the grid, the race will get underway, and then we will begin the 30-minute timer. Instead of it just being the one formation lap and then the race getting underway after 30 minutes, there is now no formation lap, and the drivers will depart from the grid. The 30-minute timer will begin to count down, and then when we get to a point where race direction deem it as safe, which will come from feedback from the safety car driver as well as the race drivers out on the track, then we can get the race underway proper with green flag conditions. Here is Tak Shaw, second place for him at the checkered flag. He starts on the inside, or the outside rather I should say, of the front row of the grid in the 196 machine. And again, very excited to see what Tak is going to be able to do. He was absolutely elated with having taken his first race in the Copper Shell Am podiums positions in 2026. He won a race in this class here last year. You see a look at the curb there on the inside. If we compare it to yesterday, it was very wet, but also there was a lot of standing water out there on the racetrack. Thankfully, the rain is nowhere near as intense as it was 24 hours ago. So with a bit of luck, we should be, I reckon, a couple of laps behind the safety car, maybe 3 or so, and then we should be able to get some green flag racing running. That's, of course, providing the weather conditions do not deteriorate within that time. Tetsuya Matsumoto, he'll be hoping for a good return to form here as well. He's fresh off the back of 2 consecutive top 5 finishes here in Copper Shell Am, P4 at race 2 in Motegi, P5 here yesterday afternoon. Made his debut back in 2024, so he's been racing in a couple of seasons, but is still awaiting on that elusive first Copper Shell Am podium, and is this the opportunity that Matsumoto will need here this afternoon? Lining up on the outside of that second row of the grid, so a pretty clear view down towards the first corner is exactly what he'll be after, sitting behind the likes of Tak Shaw, Bambi Maeda and the race 1 winner of Jay. So this is the safety car departing from the grid. These are some highlights that we saw from the race here yesterday afternoon. Again, similar circumstances, very similar conditions actually for that matter as well, very wet out here at Fuji. Eventually, after about 14 minutes behind the safety car, the green flag flew, racing action began, and we had a great battle down in towards the first corner between Anami and Jay. Anami sending it to the inside with a big move, but Jay holding around the outside and actually managing to find some grip on the inside coming on the run in towards turn 3 of the Coca-Cola curve. Eventually that's where Jay would stay. This is Bambi Maeda coming under pressure from Tak Shaw down in towards turn 1. Maeda going to the inside line, but being quite cautious on the brakes, which left the door open there for him to be under attack. And speaking of leaving the door open as well, we saw some brilliant racing action further down the order for that matter as well. These are some good battles going on. As you can see, Bambi Maeda getting really roughed up here. This is Shinji Nakajima in the fluorescent yellow 107 car going through on the inside, but nobody could touch this man here of Jay. Once he got himself out into a race lead, they didn't really know which way he went. The Rockstar is his nickname, and that certainly was a Rockstar performance. An amazing job from the Japanese driver to come over the line and take a commanding first win in 2026 in Copper Shell Am. Joined on the podium by 2 new drivers here in this class as well, with Tak Shaw and Michael Ung. And let's see whether we'll have some history being made in 2026 in race 2 once more here in the Copper Shell Am class. There is Jay, pole position for him, always flamboyant, always smiling and always happy. Hopefully he'll have a smile as wide on his face as he did at the end of the race here yesterday afternoon. Wait and see how that one works out. You can see a flurry of activity down on the grid, and a huge credit to the fans and the officials here for Ferrari Challenge Japan for not only making racing happen, but also putting on such a great show for the fans here in Japan. Down on the grid there, as you can see, enjoying being up close to some of these incredible race cars. The Ferrari 296 Challenge machines, putting out some 700 horsepower from the 3-litre V6 engine, turbocharged car, and weighs just 1,300 kilos. So very light, very powerful, and very tricky to handle in these conditions as well, being rear-wheel drive. So it really is a testament to the skill of these drivers. We'll wait and see how this one is going to go down then. As you can see, the officials about to depart from the grid. They've been given the 5-minute warning, and the timer now counts down here as we wait for the race to get underway. A reminder, of course, it is a safety car start for the second race in succession. A sensible decision here, given the value of these cars, and of course the drivers for that matter as well. Let's take a closer look at the Fuji Speedway circuit then. Stood in the eastern foothills of Mount Fuji, opened back in 1966, hosted some legendary races over the years, including Formula One in 76 and 77, hosting that titanic title battle between Lauda and Hunt back in 76, and also returned here in 2007 and in 2008 as well. It's hosted various other championships since then, including the World Endurance Championship and some native series, including Super GT as well as Super Formula, and of course here with Ferrari Challenge Japan for that matter also. See how low the cloud is just at the top of your picture there as well. It really has been a prominent feature throughout this weekend. The low cloud, that's as a result of the climate that we are in here at Mount Fuji. But don't for 1 second think that it's cold out there on the racetrack here at Fuji. 24 degrees air temperature and a huge amount of humidity as well, 86%. So it is still very warm and actually very sticky and quite uncomfortable for the drivers here, because they're going to be sat in the cockpits with temperatures probably exceeding 30 to 40, maybe even 50 degrees once they're up to a properly operating temperature. But when you're in a race suit and all your Nomex underwear and balaclavas and helmet and gloves and boots, etc., it is far from a cool place to be inside those race cars. But you can really see just again how low that cloud is here at the Fuji Speedway. And as such, starting behind the safety car, a sensible decision, I think, really, to be honest with you, even despite there being less standing water than there was here for the first running of the Copper Shell Am race. But you can see the grid far less busy than it was here. Let's have another look at how this grid lines up then. So Jay on pole position once more, with Bambu Maeda on the outside of the front row. Row 2, yesterday's podium finisher for the first time, Tak Shaw. He's joined by Tetsuya Matsumoto on the outside. Row 3 looks like this: Yoshifumi Komatsu with Yamamoto Yamaguchi. Keen to see how those two drivers are going to get on. Can they spring a few surprises? Yatsuhito Fukui with Kento Inami, who went spinning at the start of the race here yesterday. Lawrence Lau on row 5 with Shinya Nakajima completing the top 10. Row 6 is Yuichi Shirakawa and Kazuhiko Ishisaki. Row 7, yesterday's podium finisher Michael Lungi's given himself a big task though to repeat that feat here in race 2, starting down in 13th position with John Leo for company. And then completing the grid is Satoru Kako and Asuki Azaki. That's 20 drivers on the entry list here for Copper Shell Am. 4 did not make the start here, and that's exactly the same circumstances for race 2 here this afternoon. This is despite, of course, it being a new round, so a new opportunity for drivers to practice and qualify, etc. But for whatever reason, those 4 drivers who were on the entry list, which is Machito Hirata with Hirotaka Nishida, Leong Hin Leong Ruduf, as well as Koji Yamamoto, all not making it on to the starting grid once again for this second race. And we wish them well, and hopefully we will see them once again out in Ferrari Challenge Japan in Copper Shell Am in the final round of the championship, when we return to Suzuka once more. But now this is the time where tension begins to build for the drivers as they sit there waiting for that safety car to depart and for the race to get underway for the second time here in Copper Shell Am. A reminder, of course, it is a safety car start here for this 30-minute plus 1 lap race. So the safety car is going to depart from the grid as the green light comes on, and now the race does get under proper, so the timer begins to count down, and we are running behind the safety car here, with Jay leading the field from pole position, Bambu Maeda and Tak Shaw in second and third place there respectively. And now we'll see how this one is going to go down and how much running we're going to get under the safety car. You can see the windscreen wipers working away on the front of the Ferrari safety car here then. Not much of a surprise there at all. I don't think the rain is quite as intense as it was here for race 1, but nonetheless, as you can see, there is still standing water out there, and drivers want to make sure that they've got a chance to get the car up to the right operating window. And even if it's just one more lap behind the safety car here, you know, we're talking some 4.59 kilometers extra of running, and it's just a better opportunity for them to get heat into the Pirelli tyres, get more heat into their brakes, and just make sure that everything's up to the right operating window. And it's such a long run from the start line down towards the first corner that if you're arriving there without correct temperature into the tyres and the brakes, you can go sailing on down at the first corner, and it just leaves the drivers vulnerable and open to incidents, which is the absolute last thing that we want here in Ferrari Challenge Japan. We want all the drivers to be safe and able to race as competitively as possible, and I think a safety car start is the safest way of doing that. You can see some spots of rain there on the camera lens as well, indicating that it is still raining at this particular point of the circuit as the drivers making their way through in towards turn 6. Circuit now beginning to open up quite significantly as we head through the next series of corners, turn 7, turn 8, and then down in towards the heavy braking zone of the Dunlop curve. We saw quite a few overtaking moves here in race 1 of Coppershell Am, coming down into this corner. We'll see whether we get the same feat here this afternoon. In particular, we saw Yasuhito Fukui, who was doing some big sends actually down in towards the braking zone of turn 10. You can see they go back on themselves quite a lot as you come through the right-hander of that turn 10, this sort of flip-flop chicane. And then the very technical final sector, it comes over the rise of the hill into turn 13 as the safety car's leading this field round, and it's actually quite a clumsy few corners to complete the lap, and very difficult in particular to get the power down, especially the final corner, because it's quite a wide entry point into there, and that's evidenced by the fact that we did see some overtaking moves on the inside. But the problem with that is you can go through on the inside, make a move, but then when you're on a tighter trajectory through that corner, it can then compromise your exit out, and then you're carrying that all the way down the 1.4 kilometre long start-finish straight. So it's a case of risk versus reward. The driver's just coming out of that final corner now. You can say send one through on the inside, but is it going to cost your driver and then leave you vulnerable down the start-finish straight and under attack as you head into the braking zone of the first corner? So we complete the first lap then of racing action under the safety car here. Still no sign of that coming in as it stands for now. We'll wait for those lights to go out on the top of the safety car, and then, as I say, hopefully we'll get this race underway proper. Tetsuya Matsumoto there in 4th position. He'll be hoping for a good run of things. Finished P5 on the road yesterday in the Cornez Osaka car. As I alluded to earlier on, still waiting for that elusive first Shell Am podium here. He's got Komatsu behind him in the 1, 2, 3 machine. And we'll see what Komatsu is going to be able to do. He's raced in this championship for a good number of years since its inception back in 2023, finished 7th overall back in that year. Despite a partial schedule in 2024, he was 9th in the standings. Came back for a full season though in 2025 and finished P6. So we've seen a steady rate of progression really from Komatsu there, the number 1, 2, 3, and we'll see how Yoshifumi is going to get on here this afternoon. Could he get a first podium of the 2026 season? P6 yesterday was his best result of the year so far. Tack short there, making his way through. There is Matsumoto, and there is Yoshifumi Komatsu with the 1, 2, 3 on the red car, just making his way through in 5th position. So all nose to tail at the moment, all fairly stagnant out there at the sharp end of the race. Still those lights ablaze on the safety car here on lap 2. The race, as we say, still underway proper. If you consider where we were for Pirelli Am and the Coppershell race we had beginning proceedings here on Saturday, we had that whole race run under the safety car. So with a bit of luck, we will have some green flag action like we saw here for the first of the Coppershell Am races yesterday afternoon. There is that safety car making its way round. Another legendary Ferrari machine coming down in towards the braking zone of turn 10. So wide it is on the entry that you really can send one through on the inside, but you do need to have a willing dance partner going through into there, because as you see the corner tightens back on itself. So if you do go slightly wide, you need to make sure you're going to have a driver that's not going to turn in on you and cost you an opportunity to make that move stick, and also a chance of contact there as well. The drivers again making their way through in towards that final sector. CJ there leading Bamboo Maeda. As we say, really hoping that Bamboo Maeda is going to be able to have a better run of things here this afternoon. It's his debut season in the championship, and we've seen some really strong performances, not only in the race but also in qualifying. He started in third position on 3 separate occasions, once in Okayama, once in Motegi, and once here yesterday at Fuji. But P2 on the grid for Maeda is the best qualifying position that we've seen from him. Just 7/10 of a second away he was from Jay once all was said and done after qualifying earlier on here today at Fuji. So best qualifying of the season so far. Let's hope he's able to have the pace underneath him, because as I said, he really struggled once the lights went out, and clearly seems to be a driver that knows he can get the pace and performance underneath him and knows that he can make some real inroads in the race, but unfortunately it clearly seems to take a little bit of more time than he would be anticipating to just get up to that right operating speed. And that's the problem when you're in such close competition as we have here with a rolling start at Fuji in the Ferrari Challenge Japan series, that it's not easy to go out there and go very fast straight away. And if you're lacking just that little bit of confidence, a little bit of experience, and for Maeda it's his debut season in Ferrari Challenge Japan, maybe that's the thing he needs to work on, just the pace in the opening stint of the race. We'll wait and see how it works out for Maeda. Hopefully I'll be proven wrong and we'll see him fighting at the sharp end immediately, but you can guarantee that the likes of Tangshaw as well as Tetsuya Matsumoto will be hunting him down and trying to challenge for position. So drivers there making their way through. You can see the other facilities here at the Fuji International Speedway in the background of your shot there. Some driving experiences here for the fans to enjoy as well, and a good opportunity for them to learn control of a car in a controlled environment as well, for that matter, and especially in conditions such as this. It's skills that you're going to be learning when you're on the back roads in Mount Fuji, making your way up through the mountain and going through two-gate courses and such like as well. It really does help to have relevant experience and to make sure that you can handle the machine, and perhaps that's what they're offering here at Fuji as well, an opportunity to learn proper car control. Incidentally, despite the fact we're under a safety car, you can see that we've had a fastest lap coming in from Shinya Nakajima in the 107. He's down in 10th position on the grid as it stands for now. Qualified P14, but came over the line in P8 here yesterday, did Nakajima. His first time racing in Ferrari Challenge since 2024, and finished 6th in the Copper Shell AM class in this category's debut season back in 2023, for that matter, as well. As his first appearance we've seen of him so far throughout this year. He's in the very distinguishable fluorescent yellow car, and you'll be able to spot him a mile off as the field makes its way around the final corner to begin another lap under safety car. So that will complete the second lap of action here behind the safety car, as we still await confirmation as to what is happening with regard to this race at the moment. Still see the wipers ablaze here for the drivers. They'll be on the radio at the moment to the engineers and to the teams who will be relaying that back to race control and just establishing the circuit conditions and again making sure it's going racing. For my money out there, it's not that we're seeing particular wheel tracks coming down the start-finish straight like we saw in the Pirelli Am and Copper Shell race one yesterday, which was, as I mentioned earlier on, run entirely under the safety car until it was red flagged before its time, really. So, which indicates that while it is wet, there's nowhere near the level of standing water that we had here for race one on Saturday. But nonetheless, again, just erring on the side of caution, just waiting to see how this one is going to go down. There is Shinya Nakajima in that fluorescent yellow 107, as you can see, making your way through the forefront of your picture that I was mentioning about. He's got Shirakawa, Ishisaka behind, and then yesterday's podium finisher, Michael Ung, who was over the moon to get his first ever rostrum in the Ferrari Challenge Japan series in Copper Shell Am. He was joined, of course, on the podium by Tangshaw. Incidentally, Tangshaw has obviously been able to maximise things a little bit more here this afternoon as he starts in third position on the grid, whereas Michael Ung down there in P13. So not sure whether he had a problem in qualifying or whether he just wasn't quite able to get the best out of his car. But if you consider that the pole position time set by Jay was a 1:51.666, Michael Lung was a 1:54.372. So quite a big gulf actually in terms of lap times there. And Lung will be hoping to again make some forward progress through the field. That's the thing though, when you're in a rolling start such as this, they will be going green flag racing. And you can see the lights there going off under the safety car. So confirmation after 3 laps, the safety car will come in. So essentially now what happens is the safety car will speed up, it will peel off into the pit lane, and Jay will then set the pace as the drivers will come to the line. And we saw them quite spread out under the safety car start here yesterday. But here today, they're now quite bunched up as Jay has slowed down quite significantly coming in towards this final sector. So I wonder if we're going to get that 2x2 formation to the timing line and get a proper race start here with the drivers going side by side. Wait and see how this one works out. But just to remind you of the grid then here, as we're about to get green flag running underway, it's Jay who will line up at the head of the field in the white and red machine, Bamboo Maeda in the green number 159 directly behind, then it's Tak Shaw in the 156 in the predominantly black and red car, Tetsuya Matsumoto directly behind him in the red machine. Then you've got Komatsu Yamaguchi for Kui, who was finishing in P4 yesterday, made a good ascension through the field, starting his way further up the order for Kui. So let's wait and see how this one will work out. But Jay has bolted before the final corner here, you can see, so we're not going to get a 2x2 formation, but we are going to get green flag racing underway then here, and that's a perfectly timed start to the race for Jay. No overtaking before the drivers come across the timing line, and you can see Bamboo Maeda caught napping slightly as we head across the line then and do begin green flag running with just over 17.5 minutes on the clock, and already Tak Shaw on the attack then as we head down the start-finish straight. Bamboo Maeda has managed to get his act together as they come down in towards the braking zone of turn 1. So Tak Shaw then not quite able to make a move stick. Tetsuya Matsumoto also looking pretty up for it as well there in P4, but Jay leading the way as he did here in race 1 on Saturday from Bamboo Maeda. No big lunges really down in towards the heavy braking zone of turn 1, and that's quite sensible really from all of these drivers. They're just making sure that they're getting everything up to the right operating window and that they're ready to attack later on in the lap, and that's exactly what we're seeing here for Tak Shaw through 100R. He's got the inside line on Bamboo Maeda, but he's deep down in towards the left-hander. That allows Bamboo Maeda to go careering back through on the inside, but Shaw does not want to give this one up as they come through the next right-hander though. Maeda has got the inside line. He holds on to track position and keeps second place against Tak Shaw for now, and that might allow Tetsuya Matsumoto to join in to the party as well as Komatsu as well. So they are not far adrift from one another, all inside that top 5. And we'll wait and see how this battle is going to continue to develop. Bamboo Maeda, though, in second place. You can see just how much he's been able to pull out. A couple of car lengths of a gap as we head in towards this final sector, such as the rate of it ebbing and flowing there. And Tak Shaw with quite an audacious lunge, really, on the inside going through 100R and into the hairpin of turn 6, but just not quite able to make anything stick at that point. But as we come to the end of the first lap then, it's Jay who will lead things from Bamboo Maeda. The gap already nearly 2 seconds across the timing line. Then Tak Shaw in third position in the black car. Tetsuya Matsumoto there in the Dayglow orange machine, the 170. And Jay there still leading the way in the white, red and purple machine, winner from race 1 here on Saturday. Look to the inside there for some other drivers as they head into the braking zone of turn 1. Pretty static really on the fringes of the top 10, not too much of a surprise. Unfortunately for Michael Lung, who, as I mentioned earlier on, was on the podium here yesterday afternoon. He has not really made much of an impression at the start of this race. Here is Nakajima coming under pressure from Shirakawa. Shirakawa getting the move done down in towards the left-hander, and I think he's able to make that one stick. Indeed he was. So Nakajima then overtaken by Shirakawa for P10 in this race. going through into the left-hander of turn 3. Now, this is where Maeda was vulnerable to Tak Shaw last time around. So clearly Maeda looks to be comfortable in that final sector, but the first sector, I would argue that he seems to be struggling at this point. Wait and see how it's going to develop here between Maeda and Tak Shaw, but the confidence of Tak Shaw after that podium here yesterday afternoon will have done him no harm at all as we head through towards this final sector. Matsumoto there lurking in the background as well, and just trying to keep in touching distance of these two drivers. If they start squabbling amongst one another, we see a few lunges into a couple of different corners that might allow Matsumoto to join into the party here as we exit out of the final turn and come across the timing line to complete the second full lap of racing action, but the 6th lap here in this race. Bamboo Maeda again resisting that pressure of Tak Shaw as we head across that timing line once more. There is Jay continuing where he left off with another fastest lap for him, a 1:53.404. That's nearly a second and a half quicker than we've seen from Maeda, and just about a second or so quicker than Tak Shaw as well. So Shaw about half a second or so faster than the man in second place at the moment, and Matsumoto also backing that up. He was in fact a tenth of a second to the better of Tak Shaw in third position. So Matsumoto there in the Dayglow orange and black machine, ready to get involved into the action then here in this battle. And here we see Tak Shaw again piling the pressure on Maeda. Are we going to have a repeat of what we saw on the opening first lap of racing action? We are. He's got the inside line. Can he get it stopped this time? The door's kind of half open there for Maeda to retaliate, but it's a much better time into the braking zone there for Tak Shaw. And indeed, he does get that move made for second position with a very bold and brave move down into the hairpin. So now he's got clear track in front of him. Can he capitalise on that? Can he close the gap down to Jay in the lead of the race as they come through turn 10, the Dunlop corner? Bamboo Maeda slightly wide there through turn 11 as he's fighting the car and fighting the conditions, and Matsumoto ready to pick up the pieces and get himself onto the podium here. Currently sitting in fourth place there is Tetsuya Matsumoto in the 170. We'll see what impression he is going to be able to make on this race. 2 consecutive top 5 finishes Matsumoto has had, but the podium has eluded him so far in Copper Shellam, and this is a real opportunity to get himself onto the rostrum for the very first time here at Fuji. You can see the move though that was set up by Tak Shaw here on Bamboo Maeda. Greater momentum through the right-hander of 100R. Ran it slightly deep on the apex of the corner, but nowhere near as much as he did on the first attempt at that move a couple of laps ago. And as such, he was able to carry that momentum on the outside and hold on to it. See Tak Shaw there with a bit of bodywork damage actually on the inside of his front bumper. The left-hand side as we look at it, the right-hand side as he will look at it. So I wonder if he's had a coming together with the curb, or whether he was just that close in the overtake that we saw on Bamboo Maeda that he actually made a bit of contact with him. Either way, I don't think it'll be affecting him too much, but certainly there'll be a loss of downforce from the right-hand side of his car, which will be a little bit more noticeable here in these wet conditions than he would like. And hopefully he doesn't have too many ill effects on the handling for Tak Shaw. Meanwhile, some good battles going on here. There's Michael Ung, who is sitting behind Ishizaki rather, I should say, for 11th or 12th place. Looking for the inside line then here. Is he going to be able to make this one stick? He is. Michael Ung getting his act together then here after a tricky qualifying, making his way through at 100R for 12th position. He's going to have a tall order to get himself into those points positions as a result of the field now being quite spread out after a few laps under green flag conditions. But nonetheless, a good ascension through the field as he makes his way up into P12. So that's one place gain from where he started. You can see Anami there has also made some ground as well. And Anami was up inside the top 2 positions, if you remember, here yesterday afternoon. But Kento had a spin down at turn 3 after just a couple of laps of racing. And as such, he was classified over the line in P13 and struggled here in qualifying. Maybe his confidence taking a knock. P7 he sits as it stands for now. So that would be 2 points on the board for Kento. And another fastest lap coming in from Jay at the lead of the race as he extends his gap up to 5.1 seconds over Tak Shaw then here. Bamboo Maeda now falling into the clutches of Tetsuya Matsumoto, who is chasing down that first podium here in Copper-Shellam. Just under 10 minutes now left on the clock, plus 1 lap left to go. As they make their way through turn 3, is this going to be the race where we will see history being made? That would make it 3 debutant podiums in the Ferrari Challenge Japan series here this weekend, with Tak Shaw and Michael Lung breaking their ducks yesterday. And Matsumoto again can sniff that opportunity against Bamboo Maeda. Look at how much more committed he is on the brakes there into turn 6, closing up quite significantly onto the back of the green machine. Yamaguchi in the 144 car here. Distinctive livery from him in the Ideal Run machine. Let's see what Yamaguchi is going to be able to do, making his impression in this race. Started on the 3rd row of the grid in that 144 car. In terms of his results so far this season, only made his debut at Motegi. Has had a park campaign throughout 24 and 25. Had a best result though in class of P4 in one of the races during that year. Sitting though in P6 at the moment, which would equal his best result that we saw from race 2 in similar conditions to this actually in Motegi for that matter. Now he's in the wheel tracks here of the 1-2-3 car of Yoshifumi Komatsu. Komatsu, who has had, again, a good smattering of points finishes throughout the 2025 season, including here yesterday at Fuji as well, but now coming under pressure from Yamaguchi as they head across the timing line. Incidentally, Jay's gap at the lead of the race, so over 5 seconds last time, it's now down to 3.8. So wonder whether Jay is just easing off the pace a little bit, or whether he made a mistake on that lap. We'll wait and see whether the gap shrinks down further or whether it will begin to creep up again. Get an idea of exactly what went on for Jay on that last lap. I wonder if he might have just had the slowdown there, but the gap coming down to 3.2 seconds. So again, I'm wondering whether Jay is beginning to struggle here in these conditions. And that might be vulnerable to Tak Shaw in the closing stages if the rate of the gap comes down by that margin again. I mean, that was 2 seconds he lost in 1 lap there, and a further 0.8 of a second at the last split as well. Meanwhile, you can see that Yamaguchi is quicker than Yoshifumi Komatsu here by 0.3 of a second last time around for 5th position. Maeda very, very deep down at turn 10. That's going to leave him vulnerable here to Tetsuya Matsumoto's attack then. Nothing doing for Matsumoto going through 11 and 12, so he does live to fight another day, does Maeda, but you can see just pushing the limits, pushing the envelope for him. He's lapping about half a second or so slower than Matsumoto at the moment. And it seems to be a case of when and not if we're going to get Matsumoto attacking for that final podium place here. And indeed, look at that on the inside going into the final corner. The door was open there for Maeda as he left it open for Matsumoto to challenge for position. And he manages to make his way up into 3rd place. That debut podium here at Fuji is bang on for Tetsuya Matsumoto with a great move on the inside down the final corner. All he needs to do now is consolidate that and not allow the advances of Bamboo Maeda to return the favour and attack for position once more. Meanwhile, Komatsu under the cosh here of Yamaguchi once again. Yamaguchi, as we said, the quicker man last time around and setting consistently faster sector times than here. But I wonder whether Komatsu might just be leaving something in his locker to try and respond through the first sector. Actually, a couple of tenths of a second quicker there for Komatsu. Let's have a look at the move being set up, though, here for Matsumoto on Bamboo Maeda. Came from a long way with a big lunge on the inside, and Bamboo Maeda there just, again, exactly what we've seen from him, really. Quite cautious on the brakes going into those big braking zones. And as such, that just left him vulnerable to the advances of Tetsuya Matsumoto. Managed to make that move stick very nicely indeed. And Matsumoto now in the Dayglow orange car. The corner's Asaka run machine with the best lap, as you can see there, of a 1:53.8. Chasing down that debut podium and looking to stand on the rostrum with Tak Shaw and Jay for the very first time. Just under 5 minutes plus 1 lap now then here left to go. Komatsu and Yamaguchi still challenging for position. The gap up to 1.3 seconds between those two drivers. Kento Minami, who qualified so strongly here yesterday. Of course, those grid positions were taken by the free practice times as qualifying actually was cancelled, just to remind you. But had that spin in the opening stage of the race, eventually meant that he hobbled home to P13. Meanwhile, there is Jay. The gap now down to 2.9 seconds. So it ebbed and flowed. It went back up again, and now it's starting to come down under 3 seconds for the first time. And I wonder whether Jay is just going to know that he's got enough of an advantage in his pocket to not need to go out there and set these quick lap times here, and just not leave himself too vulnerable at the end of the race. If he goes and overdrives it and has a spin, well, obviously that's going to cost you far more than you would gain by pulling out a couple of tenths of a second over the course of the lap. But again, it's decreasing down to 2.6 seconds. So Tagshaw here will be being given the hurry up on the team radio at the moment, being told that, look, the gap's coming down, you are quicker than Jay in the race, and you have got an opportunity to fight for the victory then here. And we'll see how close Tagshaw can get onto the back of the rear wing of the race one winner. Speaking of onto the rear wing, Bamboo Maeda is now going to come under pressure here from Yoshifumi Komatsu, and also probably Yamaguchi there as well. And Yamaguchi, as we say, was lapping quicker, and Yamamoto will be hoping to try and make that move stick before too long then here. Through turns 10 and 11, you can see nose to tail between these three drivers. If anything, the rain looks like it's increasing in intensity, and that's something to make a note of as well, because of course this circuit is evolving lap by lap and almost corner by corner, with the weather conditions looking like they're slightly beginning to deteriorate here. We had a typhoon warning actually this weekend. There was a doubt over racing action beginning at all. Indeed, that's what we saw in the Trofeo Pirelli Am and in the Copper Shell races here yesterday. It was run entirely under the safety car before it was red flagged, and as such it meant that we did not get any green flag running. Thankfully, about an hour or so later, the track conditions cleared up slightly. We were able to get some green flag racing here in the Copper Shell Am class. Right, the gap has stabilised and actually increased slightly between Jay and Tagshaw, but Yamaguchi on the back of Komatsu once again. Yamaguchi in the white and green machine, Komatsu just in front of him in the red and white car. And are we going to see an attack for position coming in towards turn 3? Flashes the lights to try and distract Komatsu. Does Yamaguchi? Nothing doing into the left-hander, but he's running out of opportunities then here, so we're probably going to get another 2 laps of racing by my running. Bamboo Maeda just under a tenth of a second quicker. Sorry, Bamboo Maeda, I beg your pardon. Komatsu just under a tenth of a second quicker than Yamaguchi last time around. There is Bamboo Maeda, who is holding off the advances of Komatsu and Yamaguchi so far. And look at the sector times then here between them. Komatsu actually about 4 tenths of a second slower than Bamboo Maeda. Incidentally, Yamaguchi about 5 tenths of a second quicker than Komatsu through that first sector alone. So it's Yamaguchi the man we really need to look at. Don't count out the likes of Kento Inami, actually, for that matter, and also the driver in the 101 of Yasuhito Fukui, who finished in P4 here yesterday afternoon. He could spring a bit of a surprise in this race. Inami, as you can see, has made one position up from where he started in P8 on the grid and can sniff an opportunity at things. We come across the line then here. This will be the penultimate lap of racing action here, the last one under the timer for Jay. As you can see, just over 30 seconds left on the clock, and has done a great job. The gap down to 2.6 seconds, so it's ebbing and flowing here, but I think Jay has got this one pretty much sewn up here, really, barring a late race mistake from him. You can see how different it's been in terms of the lap times there. Half a second quicker for Jay on lap 13. Lap 12, the lap before, Tagshaw about 3 tenths of a second faster. But I think Jay is just sort of easing off then here, really, and giving himself a bit of a margin. As I said, he'll lose a lot more if he spins in the dying stages of this race than he would do by gaining a couple of tenths of a second. Right, Yamaguchi is now ahead of Komatsu, so he has been able to make that move stick. This was what we didn't see down the start-finish straight. Yamaguchi here on the outside of Komatsu, late on the brakes going in towards the first corner. Komatsu was just too late on the brakes, ran it deep. That opened the door for Yamaguchi to walk through it quite nicely. And as such, Yamaguchi now moves his way into the top 5 for the first time in this race, with now 1 and a bit laps to go here. Just under a second or so he was behind Bamboo Maeda, but Bamboo Maeda, again, just beginning to respond in the closing stages of this race. Still no podiums for Yamaguchi, and doesn't look like he's going to break that duck here for that matter as well. Finishing P6 at race 2 in Motegi. However, it would be his best finish of the season so far, having only made his debut at that round in Motegi. Fastest lap there for Tak Shaw as we come across the timing line to get now down to 2 seconds. 1 more to go then here at Ferrari Challenge Japan, and are we about to have a twist in the tail? It's decrease and increase over the last sort of 4 or 5 laps or so. Jay with a 2.1 second advantage at the end of the penultimate lap to begin one last tour, one last run of 4.5 kilometers here in Copper Shell Am. And Jay chasing his second successive win, took his first win here in Copper Shell Am 24 hours ago, and would love to do the double at the Fuji Speedway circuit. But Tak Shaw, fresh off the back of his debut podium, can sniff an opportunity. You can see he's been half a second faster over the last couple of laps respectively, and I wonder if he's going to try and force a mistake, force the hand of Jay here, but I think he's running out of time. He's just a bit too far away to make a lunge through on the inside. Needs to hope that Jay can make a mistake, and all that Tak Shaw can do is just drive as calmly, as smoothly and as quickly as he possibly can here, and hope that Jay does make an error coming in towards some heavy braking zones. You can see defensive lines as we come in towards turn 10, maybe just taking a slightly tighter line there to keep the tyres a bit cooler. Slightly wide on the exit of turn 11, but as we head through into the final sector, I think Jay is just going to have this one in his pocket. Again, it's ebbed and flowed here really, and barring a mistake through the final couple of corners, it is going to be a commanding second win in succession here for the man known as the Rockstar in Ferrari Challenge Japan. It's a valiant effort by Tak Shaw to have closed that gap down by such a margin. Over 3 seconds it was a few laps ago, but Jay will exit his way out of the final corner, and it is going to be the double here at Fuji. Jay will take his second win in Copper Shell Am here at Ferrari Challenge Japan at the Fuji Speedway. It's victory for Jay as he comes across the line and takes the checkered flag by just under 2 seconds from Tak Shaw. Matsumoto is going to get his debut podium here in Ferrari Challenge Japan as well. A quite brilliant drive from the 170. He's been waiting for that for such a long time, and he will be elated on the rostrum here with Bamboo Maeda holding on to 4th position ahead of Yamaguchi, who got the better of Komatsu at the start of the penultimate lap. Anami in P7 for Kui in 8th place ahead of Lawrence Lau, and then Shirakawa completing the top 10. Nakajima just losing out to the top 10, but the arms out of the window there for Jay, and what a brilliant drive. They always say victories are like London buses. You wait all year for one, and then 2 come along at once, and that is exactly the scenario we've had here for Jay. First competed in Fuji in 2025 in the 488, but this is his first full season in Copper Shell Am. Got his first podium of the year back in Motegi in race 2. First win here yesterday with pole position, and then the class and overall victory, and repeats the same feat here this afternoon in race 2 as well. Not quite able to get the fastest lap. Tak Shaw taking that honour by about 0.3 of a second. And another valiant effort from Tak Shaw. That's his second successive second place finish, and a similar scenario for him as well. Again, you wait all year, and 2 podiums coming along at once as well. So a great weekend for the Cornet Shiba driver. Won a race last year in the Shell Am class, did Tak Shaw, and finishing P2 for the second successive race here at the Fuji Speedway. But there can be no denying that Jay was the class of the field here at Fuji. What a phenomenal drive, what a great weekend from him, and I can't wait for his post-race interview because after race 1 here yesterday, he was over the moon, and I'm sure we're going to get a similar story here this afternoon as well. The Rosso Scuderia driver making his way down the start finish straight for the final time here this weekend, and so easy it would have been to make a mistake, to snatch a break, to run onto one of the white lines and have a spin, to lose grip and lose momentum. But Jay just able to command that one. A Leicester flag victory here in Copper Shell-Am. Very well done to the Japanese driver. And hopefully we'll see him moving up the ranks through Ferrari Challenge Japan in the years to come. Copper Shell, Trofeo Pirelli Am, and Trofeo Pirelli the other 3 classes. And where will we see the rockstar appearing in the future as he makes his way into Parc Ferme and towards the podium, of which he'll be joined by Tax Shaw for the second race in succession. But the big story here is another debutant podium. The Dayglow orange and black machine of Tetsuya Matsumoto in the Corners Osaka car. Made his debut in this championship back in 2024 and now will stand on the rostrum for the first time. And it's been a long time coming there, really. A bit of a sluggish start of the year for the 170, with just 1 points finish in the first 5 races. That was P7 at the second race in Suzuka when these drivers were supporting the Formula 1 event that weekend. But the last couple of races for Matsumoto, with a P4 and a P5 respectively, has seen a good shift of momentum and clearly a bit more confidence behind the wheel for him, and as such he has gone on to take the win. Take his first podium here in Ferrari Challenge Japan, and very well deserved indeed. So not long to go then till podium celebrations will be getting underway, and of course we'll be hearing the interviews as well from Jay at the end of that race. As I say, can't wait to hear what he has got to say. We'll hear from Kei Cozzolino, who will be down there talking to the man with probably the best hair in the Ferrari Challenge Japan paddock, for that matter, as well. Has done a superb job so far this weekend as Jay, and bookends it with a second successive win as all the cars are now pushed back into the garage there. You can see just closest to your picture the fluorescent yellow machine of Nakajima. 137 of Inami as well. Good recovery job from Inami to bag some points after the trials and tribulations that he suffered here yesterday. Difficult end to racing action for him after finishing outside of the points on Saturday following the spin he had in the opening lap, but nonetheless manages to right those wrongs 24 hours later with a podium, with a points finish, I should say, rather, here this afternoon. Well, thankfully, the rain in its particularly heavy intensity staying away from the circuit at the moment, and we only hope that that trajectory continues in Trofeo Pirelli, Pirelli Am and Copper Shell in about 45 or so minutes time. Beg your pardon, about an hour's time we'll get the race underway here for that class, and hopefully we'll get some green flag running, because all we saw yesterday was action behind the safety car for those drivers, because it was coming down like cats and dogs here at the first running of the race, and as such we only had action behind the safety car for about 10 minutes or so, and then a red flag trunicated the running of it. But thankfully, when we did these close-up shots here on Saturday, we saw a big amount of rain in quite a heavy intensity. And on Sunday here, no such story. Still some droplets, as you can see on the lovely daisies here at the Fuji Speedway. But nonetheless, far less miserable than it was, shall we say, here than it was yesterday. Well, the marshals down there just doing some track maintenance. Full credit to the marshals for staying out in these conditions here this weekend. I'm sure they'd much rather be sat at home with a cup of tea and a biscuit, but nonetheless, They've done a fantastic job down there with what looks to be one of Harry Potter's Quidditch sticks to try and clear the circuit.
And here we have the race 2 winner of the Shell M category. Jay, congratulations, おめでとうございます。
Yay! Estoy muy felicimoso and muchas gracias mi padre de Enzo Ferrari e che Cozzorino. Thank you. Arigato.
Thank you so much for thanking me as well. The conditions, again, were really difficult, raining even stronger than yesterday's race, but you made 2 pole to win victories. What a perfect win. What a perfect race for this weekend. 本当に素晴らしいレース。昨日よりも雨がね、コンディション大変でした。ポールトゥウィン、なんともうクリーンパーフェクトウィンでしたね、今週。
Que milagro! 本当奇跡です。本当皆さんのおかげと、そしてスタッフの皆さん、フェラーリの、そしてロッソスクーデリアのみんなのおかげ、そして尊敬するドライバーさんたちの皆さんと一緒にレースできたことは最高だったと思います。
As you can tell from his Spanish, that it was a miracle for his race, and you know he's thanking his team, Rosso Scuderia, his team, his coach, and everyone that is involved in his victory. So now we have another race, final round in Suzuka. Very soon, you're leading the championship. How do you feel about it? さあ最終戦、次鈴鹿を残すところでもうかなりチャンピオンに王手がかかってますが、どうですか、チャンピオンいけそうですか？
ペソスステップバイステップドライブセーフティーで安全に皆さんと楽しんでいきたいと思います。
He says, just gotta be safe out there and try to win the victory for the championship. Back to you.
An amazing job from Jay. Probably the most flamboyant interview we'll have here this weekend. He is full of the joys of spring, even despite the fact the weather does not back that up. But multilingual as well. He was speaking a bit of Spanish in that interview. I think there was a little bit of Italian and a bit of English and also Japanese that came out there as well. So there we are. He's far more lingual than I could ever have hoped to be. But also, I think only him and Liam Gallagher can probably get away with wearing sunglasses indoors. But he certainly does rock it, does the rock star of Jay. And as Kay Cozzolino quite rightly said there, also increasing that advantage in the championship as well. An amazing job from him here this weekend, increasing up to 20 points here yesterday afternoon, and will extend that gap further still here as well. So very well done to him. Keen to see how this one is going to play out as we head in towards the final round of the championship going into Suzuka. Just 2 more races left to run in the 2026 season. You see the fans have been enjoying this one. They've been watching on. So great to see such young interest in motorsport here. Well, podium celebrations then about to begin here at the Fuji Speedway for the Copper Shell AM class. Top 3 finishers will be making their way onto the rostrum. I just heard from Adam Weller, the normal commentator for Ferrari Challenge Japan. He said it's the first time he's seen Jay talk. No regrets at all with the nickname that he coined for him of the Rockstar. I completely concur there, Adam, as well. Right then, top 3 finishers making their way on to the podium for the first time. And for Tetsuya Matsumoto, a quick look there just to see what position he should be standing on the podium. His first ever visit to the rostrum here in Ferrari Challenge Japan after making his debut a couple of seasons ago. Tak Shaw as well, on to 2nd place for the 2nd successive race. Great job from him. But for the Rockstar, for Jay, sunglasses are on, hair is down, and time to stand on the top step of the podium as well. A phenomenal job from Jay. 2 poles, 2 wins, and a commanding lead in the championship with 2 races to go in 2026. Team's representative now on the podium as well. And it's now time then for the national anthem to play here in Japan. Japanese national anthem plays out there for Jay for a second time here this weekend at the Fuji Speedway. Handshakes and congratulations all round. Time for the trophies to be presented to our top three finishers. To Tetsuya Matsumoto in the Corners Osaka run machine. Made his debut in this class back in 2024. Waited such a long time for his first ever podium, and some history is made. And likewise for Takshaw as well. 2 podiums in 2 days for him. The same also for Jay. It's 2 wins for the Rockstar. So now a commanding lead on the championship with just 2 races left to run and a maximum of 50 points available. Sorry, 50 points for the biggest pardon. 30 points for the drivers as we head in towards the final weekend of the season at Suzuka. Trophies now then presented here. Time for the photographs to take place, and then it will be time for the champagne to fly once more. Tetsuya Matsumoto just getting a quick lesson there in trophy protocol. And he also wins the Gentleman Driver award, and you can see with 2 trophies for Matsumoto to hold. It's awarded to the driver that's over 60 years of age. And for Matsumoto, couldn't have come at a better time. Very, very well deserved result for him. Well, hopefully the conditions will be slightly better for these drivers in terms of the weather as we head into Suzuka for that final weekend of Ferrari Challenge Japan. Now it's time to run and take cover as the champagne is about to fly for the first time then here on Sunday. And for Jay, well, he's getting used to that then here, isn't he, for Matsumoto-san. And I'm sure he's going to need a little bit of a lesson in how to spray the champagne, because it's been a long time coming for Tetsuya, driver of the Corners Osaka 170. But he can be proud of the job that he has done here this weekend. But for this man here, for Jay, as we said, a 15-point advantage he now has in the championship, and a further 15 scored with the victory here this afternoon as well. We'll see what the gap is in the championship, but 30 points on the board in terms of the race for Suzuka. Now the podium then does depart, and of course it's not the end of racing action. There's more to come here for Ferrari Challenge Japan, with the Trofeo Pirelli, Pirelli Am and Copper Shell race along the way. In about an hour or so's time we'll be going live for that one. I'm very excited to bring you action from that, because with a bit of luck, as we cross our fingers and our toes, we will be able to get some green flag racing underway for the very first time for these drivers this weekend. There you can see just how low the cloud has been here at Mount Fuji. Often you can see it in the background on a clear day. No such joys then here today. Let's get confirmation though of the result and look at some highlights first of all as to how things played out. Well, it was a safety car start. No surprise at all there really, because the weather has been a prominent feature here this weekend. We ran for 3 laps behind the safety car, with Jay starting it on pole position from Bamboo Maeda, but it was Takshaw, the driver, who was on the attack straight away with a big send here on the inside of Maeda down in towards the hairpin after 100R. This was the second attempt at that move, because he ran it quite wide actually a couple of corners beforehand, but managed to make it stick. Yesterday's podium finisher Michael Ung was also on the attack there as well. This was against Ishizaka through 100R. Ung was eventually come over the line in P12 after a tricky time in qualifying. Maeda though came under attack for 3rd place from Tetsuya Matsumoto. Big send on the inside in the 170 through the final corner of Panasonic. and eventually he would go on to finish in P3. Then it was all eyes on Yamaguchi and Komatsu for position as well. Komatsu indeed making a mistake at the start of the penultimate lap, allowing Yamaguchi to go through for 5th place, but nobody can topple this man, Jay. 2 wins in 2 days, a 20-point swing is what he had in the championship going into this race. He increases that advantage further still, takes his 2nd successive win in Copper Shell Am, and also now, with just 1 weekend's worth of racing left to go, we'll have a commanding lead in the championship. Confirmation then of the results. So Jay takes the win by 2 seconds over Takshaw and Tetsuya Matsumoto. Bamboo Maeda there in 4th place ahead of Yamaguchi. Then it's Komatsu in 6th place ahead of Inami and Fukui. Completing the top 10 is Lawrence Lau and Yuichi Shirakawa. Then Shinya Nakajima, Michael Ung, Kazuhito Ishisaka, John Leo and Azuki Asaki. Completing the 16-strong field will be Kako there. Satoru Kako in 16th and last place. 20 drivers were due to start this race, but only 16 took to the grid. Let's have a look though at the championship positions then. So 24 points now the lead that Jay has over Takshaw here in Ferrari Challenge Japan. Koji Yamamoto there dropping down into 4th place. Not racing here this weekend was Yamamoto, but the big news there that Takshaw is now 2nd in the championship. A reminder, a maximum of 30 points on the board available in the 2 races left to run at Suzuka. So Jay, with a 24-point advantage, now has a nice comfortable cushion. Can he do the business though in Suzuka for the final round of Ferrari Challenge Japan in 2026? Confirmation of the rest of the points finishes then here. And what a race we have been treated to for Copper Shell Am. Looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in the remainder of the weekend here with Trofeo Pirelli Am, and also the Copper Shell category. You can see the rain still coming down here at the Fuji Speedway. Hopefully we manage to continue racing action under green flag conditions. But that does bring an end to Copper Shell Am then here at Fuji Speedway. Suzuka, of course, continues and concludes the championship on the 24th to the 26th of July. But more racing action to come in about an hour's time when we bring you Trofeo Pirelli Am and Copper Shell here in Japan. Welcome back to Ferrari Challenge Japan in 2026, the penultimate round of what has been a thrilling season so far. And the story this weekend has been the weather, and so it continues on Sunday here. As you can see, the circuit is wet, and we have now got the Pirelli Am and Copper Shell race to come for you, the second of the weekend. I say that through gritted teeth, really, because race one here yesterday afternoon was held in wet conditions and ran entirely behind the safety car as a result of the weather. There was a lot of standing water out there on track. The green flag flew under the safety car, and as such, after 18 minutes, it was then red flagged and the race was truncated, and a result was declared. The upshot is Yamatatsu was announced as the winner, with Yusuke Maezawa and Colmax on the overall podium. However, as you can see, this race here also set to start behind the safety car. Well, here is your pole sitter. This is Akihiro Suzuki. Keen to see what Akihiro is going to be able to do. Now, he was classified as the last of the finishers yesterday. That's as a result of the fact that the grid positions were determined by the free practice sessions, and of course there was no overtaking in the race owing to the weather. Let's have a look at some highlights of what we've had so far here this weekend. So this is the action that we saw on Saturday, all behind the safety car. As you can see, it was torrentially wet out there. After about 16-17 minutes or so, a red flag was thrown, and Yamatatsu there in the purple and gold machine was declared as the winner. He was leading home Yusuke Maezawa, and then also on the pro podium as well was Yasutaka Shirasaki. Colmax was the first of the Pro-Am drivers across the line, with Kidd on the podium as well as Phil Kim. And in the Copper Shell class, it was Yihang Tun who was first across the line, as well as Katsuya Hirata, and then Zed Falcon also on the rostrum there as well. Well, as you can see, 7 minutes to go until the formation lap is set to get underway. Still very wet here at Fuji, but certainly nowhere near as bad as it was yesterday. Confirmation, though, that the race will start behind the safety car. No surprise there at all, owing to these weather conditions. But interestingly, the grid, as we say, a little bit different here today. Suzuki, who was last on the grid here yesterday and, of course, couldn't overtake because of that safety car, will start on pole position here today. And it's the reverse, really, because the winner from yesterday will be second on the grid. However, Yusuke Maezawa, the big man who finished in second position, will be the 83 right at the very back of the field. Not 100% sure as to what that's all about at the moment. We haven't had confirmation here in the commentary box, but there was no time on the board in qualifying for Maezawa, so I wonder whether his lap time may have been disallowed, or whether he had a problem that meant he couldn't get out in qualifying, and as such wasn't able to set a representative lap time. Either way, it did come up on our timing screen here that he has been given special dispensation to start this race under the regulations, but as you can see, for the Pirelli driver, he's right at the very back of the 17 driver strong field. The only way he can go is forwards from here, but he needs to have a big fight through the field, especially in the first couple of laps once we do go green flag racing. If you joined us for the Copper Shell Am race earlier on this morning, you'll know that the race started behind the safety car as well. We had about 3 laps or so under such conditions, and then we went green flag racing. However, with the umbrellas on the grid indicating that the rain is coming down heavier than it has been so far on this Sunday, that I wonder how heavy the racetrack is covered in the water at the moment. There's Yihang Tun, lines up in third position. He's driving in the Copper Shell class. Let's have a look at some highlights then from qualifying earlier on this morning. So drivers heading out onto the track. This is Yamatatsu, the winner from yesterday, who lines up feet on the grid. There was a red flag, though, at the early stages of qualifying. This is the number 70 of Kenbo, who was making his way around the track in the very distinctive grey and mint-coloured Ferrari. Across the line, he went to set a representative lap time. Kenbo will line up P1 in class in the Pirelli Am category, P6 on the grid overall. Yamatatsu, as I said, finished P2 and lines up on that front row of the grid as well, with the headlights illuminating his way through the spray here. And this is Akihiro Suzuki in the gold and white machine, who's across the line to take pole position and go fastest in the Trofeo Pirelli class. terms of the Copper Shell category, it's Yi-Hang Tun who lines up P3 on the grid. He was the quickest man overall. His nearest rival is Hirata in the 177 who lines up P10. So a nice comfortable cushion he's got over his nearest competitor in that category. Looking there at Yi-Hang Tun, and congratulations in the pit box after his third place starting position on the grid in the conditions here this morning. But as we said, Miyazawa really sort of biggest driver that we're expecting to see further up the order, and lines up right at the very back of the field. This is Kenbo, P6 on the grid for the Pirelli Am rather pole sitter. And keen to see what Kenbo is going to be able to do. His nearest rival will be Kid in the 51, who lines up P8 on the grid with Zed Falcon immediately alongside him. And there is Miyazawa, a hive of activity right down at the very back of the field. He's got a lot of work to do from down in 17th position, but given the pace that we've seen from Miyazawa so far this year, you would imagine that that is going to come to the fore. If you look at the last couple of weekends in the Ferrari Challenge Japan series, bounced on to make his debut this year in Motegi with a win rather, I should say, in race 1, and then a second place in race 2. Back that up with another second place, of course, here yesterday. Made his Ferrari Challenge debut though back in the Shell Am class in 2024 with a couple of wins, but also had a huge crash at Sugo, and is also racing in the Ferrari SRO Japan Cup this year as well. Well, this is the Fuji Speedway then, and a legendary circuit. 1966 this circuit opened, and it's gone through various different iterations and layouts and configurations ever since then, but it is a track that really needs no introduction. A huge start-finish straight, 1.475 kilometers long from turn 16 right down to the braking zone of turn 1, and it's made up of lots of twists and turns, quite flowing and fast in the first sector, quite tight and nadgery in the final sector, but that final sector does lend itself to some overtaking. We saw that in the Copper Shell Am race earlier on this morning, and hopefully we'll see much of the same here this afternoon. You can see track temperature there, 24 degrees, air temperature though, 23 degrees, but it's the humidity that's the big kicker this weekend. 99% humidity. It is very hot and sticky out there, and when you're sat in the cockpit of one of these Ferrari 296 Challenge cars, I can imagine that it is less than pleasant in conditions such as this. We're nestled right in the foothills of Mount Fuji, and you can really see just how low the cloud is here at this racetrack as well. It's been a particularly poignant feature over the course of this weekend. Just looking at the circuit conditions, as we see some wide shots there, no real massive patches of standing water from what we can see. As I said, the rain is coming down, but drainage at this circuit, owing to the elevation that we have here, actually quite good. So with a bit of luck, we'll have a few laps of safety car running, and then we can go green flag racing, and hopefully that won't take too long, and the racing will be as exciting as we are expecting it to be here in Ferrari Challenge Japan. But 3 different categories, 3 different championships that are on the line there as well. Excited to see how this one is going to play out. Yamatatsu it is that's leading things in Trofeo Pirelli. He's got a nice cushion over Motohiko Isasaki, who was leading coming into this weekend. Isasaki finished P7 on the road here yesterday and lines up P7 on the grid here this afternoon. In Trofeo Pirelli Am, it's Kenbo, the man who starts on the 3rd row of the grid, who is leading the championship. He's got about a 21-point cushion over Colmax and Zed Falcon. And in Copper Shell, it's Yi-Hang Tun, who is P3 on the grid, and as I mentioned earlier on, quite comfortably ahead of his nearest Copper Shell rivals, Naoru and Alex Fox, nearest to him in the championship. They are 11 and 13 points away, respectively. And we'll see how Yi-Hang Tun is going to get on here this afternoon from 3rd on the grid. You can see the red banners on the top of the windscreen. That indicates it's a Trofeo Pirelli car, so it's an all Trofeo Pirelli front row with Suzuki and Yamatatsu on the left and the right-hand side there, respectively. Yi-Hang Tun, who lines up P3 on the grid, he will have the yellow banner on top of his car. That's a Copper Shell classed machine. You can see as he just pulls away in the white car from P3 on the grid, and then behind him is Shirasaki, again with another red banner because it's a Trofeo Pirelli spec machine. So the safety car departs from the grid then. The race is now underway as the timer counts down. So the safety car start negates the use of a formation lap. So essentially, as soon as the cars depart from the grid, as we've had now. The race is now underway, so the timer will count down 30 minutes plus 1 lap. As I say, hopefully we'll just get some action behind the safety car for a few laps, give the drivers a chance to get the heat into the tyres and the brakes, and then we can go green flag racing. Right, here is the grid then. Suzuki and Yamatatsu on the front row for the start of this second race of the weekend. Yihang Tun leads things in the copper shell class. He's got Yasutaka Shirasaki for company alongside him on that second row of the grid. Then it's another couple of drivers of Kentaro and Kenbo in 5th and 6th place respectively. Kenbo leading the Pirelli and class there with Motohiko Itazaki, former championship leader P7, and then Kid alongside him in 8th place. Ed Falcon lines up in 9th position with Katsuya Hirata alongside a Pirelli Am and a Copper Shell line up on the 5th row of the grid. Row 6 is Cold Max and Kim, both in the Pirelli Am class. Beg your pardon, Yukihisa Otsuki in 13th position on the grid, and then with Yu alongside him. Mioru with Alex Fox for company on row 8. And then in 19th position is Yusaku Miyazawa, the man who finished in P2 here yesterday afternoon, right at the very back of the field. No representative lap time set in qualifying, meaning it's a fight through the field for the number 83 if he wants to score some valuable points here this afternoon. The difficulty he's got is because Trofeo Pirelli classes have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers in them in total. He will score points. At a minimum, he can get 4 points if he takes the checkered flag. The difficulty, though, is that Miyazawa is down in P17 on the grid. His nearest Pirelli competitor is P7 on the grid, which is Motohiko Itazaki. So really far away in terms of positions. So he's got to fight his way through a plethora of Copper Shell and Pirelli Am drivers in order to be able to move his way up just 1 position in the points. So it's going to be interesting to see what Miyazawa is now going to be able to do here in this race. We'll keep an eye on his progress once we do hopefully go green flag running here. But drivers now, of course, getting heat into the tyres and the brakes. Coming through the final corner at the end of the first lap here at the Fuji Speedway. See Kenbo there in the grey machine, leading across Motohiko Isazaki, the former championship leader in the bright green car. The rest of the drivers making their way through the field. Just to give you another idea of the difference of classes and the cars, the red banners on top of the windscreens are Pirelli cars, Trofeo Pirelli Am are white banners, and then the yellow banner is a Copper Shell class car. You can see that also with the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. So under safety car conditions, just before 20 to 4 local time here in Fuji. And like I say, hopefully it's not going to be too long before we do get some green flag running underway. Because it was all under a safety car yesterday, the drivers started in the same positions, or finished rather in the same positions as they started. So there wasn't really an opportunity for them to make any particular progress. And even worse than that is that qualifying got cancelled. So the grid positions were set by the free practice times. So if you had a good time in free practice, fantastic for you. But if you didn't get across the line so well, that puts you on the back foot. So if you look at the likes of Akihiro Suzuki, he was on 16th position on the grid and was eventually classified in P16 on the grid. However, clearly, because he's on pole position here this afternoon for Sunday, he has got more pace underneath him than was shown here yesterday. But that was a big disappointment for Suzuki. And also in terms of his battle in the championship, now sitting in P4 in the standings behind Yasutaka Shirasaki. So yeah, a good opportunity for him to try and fight his way back up the order in the drivers' point standings from second position, which is where he starts on that grid. Through in toward the final sector we go then for these drivers. Again, just getting everything up to the right operating window. We'll know when the safety car is going to come in because the lights will go out on the top of the machine, and then Suzuki will become the pace setter for the rest of the field. So it's now a case of drivers just getting everything up to the right operating window and waiting for that call. It's now too late, to be honest with you, for the safety car to peel in at this point around the lap. They need to have a bit more forewarning than that, and obviously the drivers will be hearing on the team radio. They'll be getting communication through from their engineers, and the engineers are subsequently getting communication through from race direction in real time. So they'll obviously be making sure that all of that is sorted and and that everybody is in the right place where they should be. Yi Hang-Tun then leading the championship in the Trofeo Pirelli, in the Copper Shell class, I beg your pardon. And Nioru, nearest rival for him, who lines up down in P15 on the grid. So again, another good opportunity here for Yi Hang-Tun, the Malaysian, to really capitalise on that strong qualifying he's had here this afternoon. Hirata, who sits in 10th place on the grid, but 3rd in class, has not gone onto the championship pages so far this season. And indeed, for Hirata, yeah, he's moving his way through the order at the moment, and will be again hoping for some strong progress. I beg your pardon, Hirata, I completely misread my championship standings. He's P4 in the standings, just 1 point behind Alex Fox. So forgive the mistake there, but yeah, Alex Fox, who lines up in 16th on the grid. So good news there for Hirata, and an opportunity here to take some points out of Alex Fox for 3rd in the championship in Copper Shell. There is Kenbo making his way around, weaving across the start-finish line to try and get everything up to the right operating window. Still no confirmation as to if the safety car is going to come in. We're now starting the 3rd lap, so drivers will come round, of course, in towards that first corner. You can see they're all quite nestled into one another, quite tightly bunched up as it stands here down this start-finish straight, and it's absolutely gargantuan, the start-finish straight, 1.475 kilometres. But race directors are going to be looking at a lot of different factors here. They're going to be looking at the standing water out on the racetrack and how drivers are coping with the conditions here on the behind the safety car. But they're also going to be looking at things like visibility. I mentioned about the low cloud earlier on, about standing water, about the spray that gets kicked up from these cars as well. I mean, these machines are producing 870 kilograms of downforce at 250 kilometers an hour. So there's an almighty amount of water that they're throwing at the back of these cars. So visibility can be at a premium. Just had a notice coming up on our timing screen that car 77 is under investigation. That is Yamatatsu, who lines up P2 on the grid. Start procedure under investigation. And well, you wonder, is that going to be a reprimand? The more likely scenario, you would imagine, is that it's probably going to be a penalty. If it's a penalty, well, that's bad news, obviously, because it could be a 5-second time penalty, and depending on how spread out the field gets, it could cost them an opportunity of a podium in class here. Shirasaki is the nearest driver to Yamatatsu in the Trofeo Pirelli class, and he's P4 on the grid, so he's only 1 place behind Yi Hang-Tun in that Copper Shell machine. We'll wait and see how that one's going to work out and give you an idea as to what is happening with regards to that. But yeah, start procedure under investigation. Didn't quite know what it's all about. Didn't see anything immediately obvious down there on the grid, but it could be a case of personnel being left hanging on the grid for too long, or maybe he departed from the grid too soon, or overtook, or something like that. There's a whole raft of possibilities here that we're not 100% sure of. So we'll wait and see what that's all about, really. In terms of the track temperature, it's dropped ever so slightly down to 21 degrees then here, so that indicates that the rain is still continuing to fall. 98% chance of rain, as I can see from our weather radar in the commentary box. So yeah, not ideal at all there in terms of the track conditions, and as such now we complete our 3rd lap behind the safety car. No sign of it coming in as it stands for now, but we remain hopeful here in the commentary box that we will get some green flag running underway this weekend in the Pirelli Am and Copper Shell race, because it'll be such a tragedy to see these races completed under a safety car. But of course, safety at the first point of it is absolutely paramount for the drivers, and the teams have got to make sure that everybody is safe out there to go racing. And when it comes down to heavier intensity, obviously you get a lot more water out there on the racetrack, and then you can also suffer from aquaplaning as well. Right, Yamatatsu then, the driver who's under investigation, left-hand side of your picture, and I think it was personnel who was left on the grid for too long then, wasn't it? So someone's left on the grid, or been on the grid for past the allotted time, and I think a penalty might be coming the way there of Yamatatsu as a result of that. We'll wait and see what that's all about, and give you the news as we receive it here ahead of the running of this race. But there is Yamatatsu, the man who won race 1 here yesterday, and that would be a big dent in his challenge for the championship. 9 points the advantage he holds over Motohiko Isesaki, and he would dearly love to try and increase that gap over his nearest rivals in that championship. Nearest rival, which is Isesaki, as I said, but also you've got Yasutaka Shirasaki, who is P3 in the Trofeo Pirelli class, but P4 on the grid, who sits there just 10 points away from Yamatatsu's ultimate championship lead. So there's a lot of opportunity here in these different categories for drivers to capitalise on things and try and increase their advantage, or indeed decrease the gap to the drivers in front. So we'll wait and see how that is going to ebb and flow as this race continues. But again, still behind the safety car as we come towards the end of lap 3 in these Ferrari 296 Challenge machines. 870 kilograms of downforce at 250 kilometers an hour, but a 3-litre V6 which produces around 700 brake horsepower. So they're incredibly fast and tricky machines. And I'm just looking at things along the start-finish straight. I've got to say, the cloud there is looking very low indeed, and it's a visibility-related point that I'm worried about here, because we saw it in the Copper Shell Am race earlier on here this afternoon, where the rain came down, but the clouds stayed away. In the last sort of hour to hour and a half or so, I would argue that the cloud definitely looks lower, and there's a bit of visibility, but also a safety issue to consider as well from a medical perspective. As well, you know, obviously we're hoping that there are no incidents out there on the racetrack, but God forbid that there are. You need to make sure that there are facilities that are in place to be able to deal with that. If you've got a medical helicopter that needs to take off and it can't do because of the low cloud, that is something that has to be considered in motor racing. I remember watching a MotoGP race at Motegi a good handful of years ago, and they delayed a practice session. I think it eventually got cancelled, if memory serves me correctly, because the medical helicopter wasn't able to take off. So it is a matter of safety, and they're going to be reviewing and assessing that situation all the time. And as we continue running under the safety car conditions here, then we will wait for further news as to if or when that safety car is going to peel in. But Akihiro Suzuki, as we say, on pole position. I mean, he would love the red flag to be thrown and a race result to be declared at this point, because if it is declared, he will go on to take a maximum of 15 points here in this race, with second, of course, awarded to yesterday's race winner of Yamatatsu. As it stands for now, obviously, with Yamatatsu, because he's under investigation. And we've just had a notice come through. The safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap. So the lights are going to go out on the safety car, which they do so now. It's going to speed up, and then Suzuki is going to become the pace setter for the rest of the field. So Race Direction have been reviewing the conditions over the last couple of laps or so. They have deemed it safe to go racing, and I dare say the drivers are going to be pretty excited about that prospect here too. So for the first time, we are going to get some green flag running here for Trofeo Pirelli, Pirelli Am and Copper Shell. No overtaking, of course, before the timing line. It's a case of now waiting for the go point here with Suzuki, and he's gone quite early coming into this final sector, just giving it a squirt full of gas as he heads in towards the final couple of corners. And then, of course, he'll end up on the start-finish straight. No one can overtake him before the timing line, but it's a case of when is he going to pick that go point then here through the final series of turns. And he's going to go now, I think, isn't he, into the final corner and get a good run on towards that start-finish straight. So for the first time this weekend, with just over 15 minutes left on the clock, we are going to get racing action about to begin. Suzuki's going to actually slow it down coming onto the timing line then here. Onto the start-finish straight we go, and now he does hit the accelerator as we blast towards the line. The green flag will fly, and with 15 minutes left to go, racing action will begin in Trofeo Pirelli, Pirelli Am and Copper Shell here as the flag flies and Suzuki leads the field across the line from Yamatatsu. Yi Hang-tun in third position in the Copper Shell machine. A battle for places going on further down there as well between Shirasaki and Kentaro as they go side by side down into turn one. Where on earth do you pick your braking point in these conditions? Well, the drivers all managing to successfully navigate their way through. Kintaro has got the better of Shirasaki on that overtake through the first corner. So good news there for the number 5 as they come through the 100R corner. This long radius right-hander, called 100R because it is 100 degrees and it's a right-hander. It is very tricky to navigate your way around, especially on this opening lap, as the drivers, of course, are still trying to get everything up right to the correct operating window. But a good start to life then for Akihiro Suzuki, last of the classified runners in the red-flagged race on Saturday here, and an opportunity for him to now capitalise. There is Kintaro ahead of Shirasaki, who was looking to try and challenge for position. Side-by-side action going on in the Pirelli AM class in the mid-pack there as well. Some good squabbles for position and some really nice, respectful racing. Looks like that was Cole Max and Hirata who were going 2 by 2 through into the Dunlop curve. But a place made there for Kintaro, place made also for Zed Falcon as well as Cole Max. Naoru as well as Miyazawa also making some positions on the opening lap then here. So good news for all of those drivers. Not so good news for the ones of which they have passed. Out of the final corner we are about to go though, and we're going to come across the timing line then here. Hirata in the middle of a bit of a sandwich at the moment with 2 Copper Shell cars. Cole Max and Phil Kim in front and behind him respectively. End of lap 1 though, Suzuki, despite having the lead of the race, has not increased it to a massive advantage, just 1 second there over Yamatatsu, and Yi Hang-tun also keeping him quite honest. Meanwhile, this is Isasaki coming under pressure here from Zed Falcon. Zed Falcon in the black car there looking for the move on the outside into turn 1. Can't make it stick as it stands for now. Is he going to get a good run up the hill and in towards turn 3? He's having a half look on the inside, but he's a bit too far away as it stands for now to make anything stick. It's so easy in these conditions to just snatch a break there on the inside, and Zed Falcon just waiting for the right opportunity to get a move made on Isasaki for the time being. Down through to the left-hander we go. Isasaki slightly wide into turn 6. Might present an opportunity there for Zed Falcon to launch an attack on the green machine, but nothing doing for him at the moment. It's been a bit of a mixed bag for Isasaki in terms of his results this season. He's had a couple of strong finishes, including a podium in Okayama, a win in Okayama, I beg your pardon, and a second place in the second race at that circuit. But also, it's been bookmarked with some other results that haven't really gone his way. He's had 3 non-point scores out of the races that he's finished, and he'll be hoping to try and get a strong result in that Trofeo Pirelli class, because at the moment he is sitting P5 in that category, 7th overall in the race, and a real opportunity to try and get some strong points on the board here with, of course, just 1 race left to go, or 1 race weekend left to go in the 2026 season. Here is Miyazawa. We were talking about him earlier on, fighting his way through the field and having a bit of contact there with you at the final turn. So the Copper Shell and the Trofeo Pirelli car coming to a bit of a head there as they head into the final turn. Miyazawa knowing that he needs to make progress through the field. It's a tall order to close up to Isasaki, who's his nearest rival in class, but he's got to try everything he possibly can here at this point to just make some progress through the field. He's having a look down the inside into the first turn, but it's a bit too late into there. That would have been a dare move to make it stick, and so easy to just lock a break, as I mentioned about, on the inside, and just deciding to live and fight another day for the man who finished in second place here on Saturday. As I say, all important for his championship challenge there as well. As you can see, the nearest Trofeo Pirelli driver to him is Isasaki, some 8 places up the road at the moment. So it's going to be a tall order. You can see there, just running a little bit deep through turn 6, but Miyazawa easily the quicker of the 2 drivers, 1.1 seconds to the better of the Chinese driver of Yu in the Rosso Scuderia machine last time around. Into the braking zone of turn 10, we have seen quite a few moves being made there this weekend, notably in the Copper Shell AM race earlier on here this afternoon. Nothing doing on that occasion for Miyazawa. Out of the final turn we go, meanwhile, with Suzuki. A second it was at the end of the first lap of green flag racing. And now it's up to nearly 2 seconds over Yamatatsu. Tun still holding on to third position for now, doing a really strong job there in that copper shell machine. The gap's beginning to become a bit more pronounced now in the top 10 as well, with the difference in classes and cars that we have. Of course, we get drivers that are fighting up the sharp end a bit more regularly than they were expecting this year, and they're in a lower category. They can move their way up. For example, Yamatatsu started the year in Trofeo Pirelli, and he was bumped up to Trofeo Pirelli after Suzuka, and he's vindicated that decision as he now sits in second place, some 1.4 seconds up the road is the race leader of Akihiro Suzuki at the moment. Still doing a great job as Kentaro there with Shirasaki challenging for position. Meanwhile, more challenges trying to be made here by Maezawa. Looks to the inside at turn 3 of Yu, but nothing doing there against Liang Chen. Can't manage to make anything stick on him through that left-hander, but through 100R he's got great momentum and a fantastic run. He's got the outside line which will switch to the inside into the hairpin, and he uses that momentum to great effect as he goes into the corner with the inside line, runs it slightly deep though, and Liang Chen Yu might be able to fight it back as they come through to the right-hander though. Just able to get the overspeed and get the traction on the outside of the corner there is Maezawa, and he does take over 14th place from Liang Chen Yu, but that is not where Maezawa would want to be in this race as it stands for now. Let's have another look at that overtake then. So you can see a huge amount of momentum through the right-hander there, just all in the wheel tracks of Liang Chen Yu. Greater commitment on the outside, late on the brakes, ran it slightly deep on the apex of the corner, which opened the door for Liang Chen Yu to retaliate back on the inside, but Maezawa was just able to pick the throttle up enough to get decent traction on the outside, and as such he moves his way into P14. Tell you what, the sharp end of this race is not over yet as it stands for now. Suzuki under ever-increasing pressure here by the looks of things from Yamatatsu, who was the quickest man last time around by 0.2 of a second over Suzuki. So are we going to have a great duel for victory between these two drivers? Well, Yamatatsu, as we know, still under investigation at the moment for that start procedure infringement. We'll wait and see what the outcome is of that. But whilst we look at it right now, there is no penalty that has been awarded between these two drivers, and certainly for Yamatatsu with that start line infringement. So at the moment it's all fair in love and war between the two. Black and white flag coming up for Maezawa for driving standards. That'll be as a legacy of the contact that we saw between himself and Liang Chen Yu at the final turn a couple of laps ago. So something worth keeping an eye on. In Pirelli, it's still Kenbo that's leading things. He's in P6 in this race, ahead of Isasaki in P7. Then the next Pirelli runners are Z Falcon in P8 and Kidd in P9, with Colmax completing the top 10. So your top 3 as it stands for now in Pirelli Kenbo, Z Falcon and Kidd. Your top 3 in Copper Shell is Tun, Hirata and Naoru, and your top 3, as we know, in the Pirelli class, Trofeo Pirelli, is Suzuki, Yamatatsu and Kentaro. The gap ebbing and flowing between the top 2, and Suzuki now beginning to respond here against Yamatatsu. The gap up to some 1.5 seconds as they come across the timing line. They head down towards the first corner into the braking zone there. And Yihang Tun still holding off the advances of Kentaro for third position. It's all relatively immaterial, really, because he'll still score the same number of points, will Yingling Tun. But nonetheless, he would love to get an overall podium finish here in this race after that superb qualifying result for the driver in the 103. The European version Malaysia outfit moved into Copper Shell after Okayama this season, as he started the year in Copper Shell and had some very strong results, in particular in Okayama, where he won and took pole in both races. This is a good little battle going on here between Kenbo squabbling here with Shirasaki, isn't it? Yeah, it is Shirasaki. I just wondered for a moment if it's another driver, but it's not. It is Shirasaki that he's having a good fight with for 5th position. Through turn 10, into turn 11, and the Trofeo Pirelli driver of Shirasaki at the moment holding off the advances of Kenbo, but Kenbo certainly looking the quicker of the two. Last time around, about 0.3 of a second of a faster lap time for Kenbo over Shirasaki. Making their way through into these final series of corners. Is the gap there on the inside for Kenbo to try and attack? He's having a half look there, but nothing doing for him now. A good exit out of the final corner will help him here. If he can get himself into the slipstream and into the wheel tracks of Shirasaki there, he might be able to launch an attack for that position down into the first corner. But Kenbo, another driver who's changed classes as well, he started the year in Copper Shell and is now in that Pirelli AM category. Down the start-finish straight we go. Defensive line there from Shirasaki. Kenbo having a look to the outside. This is a lovely little tussle for P5 in this race. Yamatatsu with the fastest lap as the gap has decreased down to 1 second at the sharp end of this race. Meanwhile, Kenbo looking left, looking right, looking for a gap on Shirasaki, but can't find it into turn 3. Has to just wait to fight another day. Good momentum around 100R could present itself with a move on the inside to the next series of corners. He's going to try and do exactly what we saw. We cross back to look at the garages here and see the tension in it, and we see Kenbo going very, very deep down at turn 6. He had good momentum going through 100R, but clearly missed his braking point as he headed into the next corner, the hairpin. And unfortunately, he's run off track and has now got to do that hard work all over again for 5th position there for Kenbo. And immediately, he is back on the attack, driving so fast here just to try and close that gap down and give him a chance of making that move for 5th position on Shirasaki before this race reaches its conclusion. So we're going to have, I reckon, we get 2 laps in, maybe 3, as we come across the line then here. Let's have another look. It's about 151 per lap here, and I think we're just about going to make the cut as Suzuki comes across the timing line then here. Yeah, we are. So I think we'll just get another 2 laps of running then here as Suzuki comes across the timing line. Oh, it's going to be tight actually, isn't it, for a matter of fact. We'll wait and see how that one works out then here. Is it 3 laps or is it 2 laps? Either way, we'll find out. Depends on what happens with this one. Yamatatsu, again, fastest man at last time around in the battle for victory. He's responding. Here is Suzuki, though. The gap up to 1.2 seconds. Last time around, they were both in the 151.3s. 151.2 for Yamatatsu, 151.3 for Suzuki. So very tight and very fine margins between these 2 drivers, and Suzuki clearly being given the hurry up on the team radio to say, look, Yamatatsu's coming, he's setting fastest sectors and fastest laps. If you don't get a wiggle on, the lead of this race and those 15 points are going to be falling away from you. Maezawa, meanwhile, down the order, up into P13 overall, but I think his challenge from there for any progression in the Pirelli class, he is going to falter somewhat here. It's the second sector where Yamatatsu looks super strong on the brakes, isn't it? But he just runs it a bit deep there into turn 10, which is going to cost him a couple of tenths of a second or so. Doesn't sound like a lot at the moment, but that could be the difference between fighting for the win and holding on to second place. Going through into the final sector we are. It is going to be tight to see whether we'll get another lap in or whether the next one will be the final tour around. Let's wait and see how this one works out. If you're Suzuki, you'll be hoping it's the start of the final lap. If you're Yamatatsu, you'll be praying that you get another lap in to get another chance to close up another 4.5 kilometres to be able to challenge the victory here against Suzuki. Right, coming to the timing line then we are between these drivers. Wait and see what the timing tower says. I think we're just going to get 1 more lap in here, aren't we? So it will be 2 to go then as we start the penultimate lap here at Fuji. Suzuki holding off the advantage still from Yamatatsu. Looks like Yi Hang-tun has got 3rd place against Kentaro for the time being. The gap between them across the line, only a Small margin of just over half a second. So we'll wait and see whether there's another twist in the tail here. Kintaro, of course, is still going to finish P3 in class if he holds off the advances of Shirasaki, but he'd love to get on to into third place in the head of the Copper Shell driver before too long. So the timer has counted down then here. Lap and a half to go, and Suzuki is now beginning to respond to Yamatatsu then. Now we're starting to see those strong sectors and stronger lap times coming in then here. You can see Suzuki just moving offline as you head towards the braking zone. Whether that was a slightly defensive line or whether he was just trying to use some of the standing water to cool the tyres down or not, I'm not 100% sure. This is the battle for third place. You've got Shirasaki looking to make a lunge there on Kintaro down into turn 10. Kenbo's there in the background in the grey and blue machine. Grey and green machine, depending on which way you see it. Really, it's a mint colour, isn't it, the green that's on Kintaro's car. But nose to tail here between four drivers in this battle for third place in the race. Toon still leading that battle with Kintaro and Shirasaki very close behind. Kenbo has got box office seats. Come across the timing line then here. We're going to get one more lap left to run, another 4.5 kilometres to go at the Fuji Speedway to decide the battle for victory between Suzuki and Yamatatsu. A second to go between those two drivers across the timing line then here. It's ebbing and flowing just by a couple of tenths of a second, but really Yamatatsu needs to try and force a mistake out of Suzuki in order to be able to have a lunge to the inside. But it's just not coming at the moment. Suzuki is driving so well, and as they come up the rise through turn 3, 100R and into the hairpin of turn 6 could be a good opportunity, but I just don't think he's going to be close enough. You can see there in the lap times actually as well, Suzuki the quicker of the two last time around. So Suzuki just keeping enough in his back pocket, slightly deep though there down at turn 6, maybe just running a wetter line, try and get the traction and the grip on the outside. Through into the final series of corners we're about to go though, as we head in the battle for victory here between Akihiro Suzuki, Yamatatsu there in second position. I just don't think he's going to be close enough unless Suzuki makes a mistake in this final lap. Hang-Tun, meanwhile, looks like he's held off the advances. There's some good battles going on further down the order there as well. That's Hirata and Naoru in 11th and 12th place, with Miyazawa just bookending it. He'll be hoping that they continue squabbling amongst one another and he can try and challenge before the end of this lap. But speaking of the end of the lap, Akihiro Suzuki has driven this one absolutely superlatively. Through the final corner we go then here at the Fuji Speedway, and it's going to be a lights to flag win for the man driving the number 17 machine as he comes to the timing line to take the checkered flag and win race 2 here for Ferrari Challenge Japan. It's Akihiro Suzuki on top, with Yamatatsu keeping him honest right down to the checkered flag. Hang-Tun is going to come over the line and finish P3 on the road, but first in class in Copper Shell after a superb qualifying is rewarded with a podium finish. Kintaro over the line in 4th place ahead of Shirasaki, and Kenbo in 6th position there as well. Isasaki, the former championship leader, will come home in 7th place ahead of Zed Falcon, Kid, and then Cold Max completing the top 10. But the upshot is the top 3 in all the classes for Trofeo Pirelli, it's Suzuki, Yamatatsu and Kintaro. In Copper Shell, the top 3 will be Tan, Hirata and Naoru, and then in the Trofeo Pirelli class, it will be Kenbo ahead of Zed Falcon and Kid. But a great drive there from Akihiro Suzuki. He will be delighted with that result. No surprise at all there as well. 4th in the championship he was coming into this race, but crucially, just a smattering of points behind Shirasaki, and of course he's outscored him then here. A great job from Hang-Tun. He should be delighted with that one. That was incredible, from qualifying P3 to consolidating that with P3 on the road, but also a win in the Copper Shell class. Delight for him. And also there for Kenbo as well in the Trofeo Pirelli Am category. Hazard lights are on, windscreen wipers are ablaze, and he can hold himself in very high distinction there after a strong result here at the Fuji Speedway to take the win in the Pro-Am class. Akihiro Suzuki makes his way back into the pit lane then here at the Fuji Speedway as the winner in Trofeo Pirelli from Yamatatsu. A notice, of course, that Yamatatsu was still under investigation for that start line infringement. We haven't heard of any outcome from that on our timing screens here in the commentary box at the moment. So if there's any news that we can bring you before the end of the broadcast, we will certainly do so. But at the moment, it's Yamatatsu classified in P2 in Trofeo Pirelli. I'm just trying to do the mental arithmetic there. Even if he got a 5-second penalty, I still think he'd hold on to P2, to be honest with you. Yeah, he would, quite comfortably actually, because he was a second and a half behind Suzuki, and the nearest rival in Pirelli was Kintaro, who was fourth on the road, and he was 15 seconds behind the race leaders. So yeah, I think that should secure Yamatatsu P2 in Trofeo Pirelli. So good job there for him. There is Kenbo, meanwhile, making his way back into the pit box. He had a great view of all the action unfolding in front of him with Shirasaki Kintaro and Yi Hang Tun, who were battling for position right down until the checkered flag. Of course, 3 podiums to come along the way here in Ferrari Challenge Japan, and hopefully it's not too wet there and the rain is easing off slightly compared to what we've had so far here this weekend, because yeah, it has been very unpleasant out there, to put it mildly. Even the trees have been trying to find some shade and some cover from the conditions here this weekend. Well, the drivers now making their way back into Parc Ferme. Of course, we're going to hear from them all in the post-race interviews in the not-too-distant future there as well. They'll be chatting to Kay Cozzolino. But, well, very expensive car park down there in the Parc Ferme area here at the Fuji Speedway. And a great weekend of racing, all brought to a close with some phenomenal battles right down to the checkered flag. And look, I know we didn't have a battle for victory that unfolded with overtake after overtake, but often when you have racing like this, it's the tension that builds up over the course of the race which makes it exciting. And we saw some really good tension there between Suzuki and Yamatatsu in particular. That gap getting bigger, getting smaller, increasing, decreasing. The two drivers responding to one another with a faster lap after another faster lap, and a sector that was quicker than the other driver, and repaying that favour. And we saw really, really good respect as well. There were no late lunges to the inside. There were no dander moves that were kind of a bit half-cocked. Really strong stuff from Yamatatsu and Suzuki. They finish in P2 and P1 respectively in this race, and also P1 and P2 in class as well in Trofeo Pirelli. Of course, the championship does roll on. The end of July will play host to the next round of the Ferrari Challenge Japan series in Suzuka to bookend it, and of course to crown our champions in these 3 classes. But as the cars are wheeled back into the garage, that's the number 83 being moved back in. Right, let's go down then and catch up with our winners.
All right, here we have the race 2 winner of the Pirelli class for the Ferrari Challenge Japan, Akihiro Suzuki. Congratulations! 優勝おめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
ということで今見てたんですけど、今季なんと優勝が4勝目ということで、はい、まあ非常に難しいコンディションでした。This year he's won 4 times. I know it was a very difficult conditions out there. How did you manage to take this victory?
まあ優勝かリタイアかみたいなずっと結果だったんで、まあ今日優勝できて嬉しいですけど、まあ金曜日の練習から車が調子悪くて全く走れなかったんで、まあ昨日のレースも一番最後尾からのスタートと、まあ残念な結果だったんですけど、まあ今日無事にポールが取れて、そしてまあ優勝ということで大変嬉しく思います。
Yeah, I'm very happy for the win because, you know, it was for me either win or nothing. And since Friday, you know, the car wasn't really behaving the way I wanted to, and I was struggling quite a bit, but I'm really, really happy that I was able to secure this victory for race 2. Now going into the last race, you're still in the contention to win the championship. Do you think you're going to be able to secure it? さあそして残すのは鈴鹿ラウンド最終戦となりますが、まだチャンピオンの可能性はありますが、いかがでしょうか。
そうですね、ずっと、少しずつポイントを取っていって、山田選手に勝てるように頑張っていきます。はい、
Yes, definitely my rival will be Yamatatsu going into Suzuka, so probably I'll do my best to catch him and please cheer on me. Thank you very much. おめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。
Akihiro Suzuki with a superb result. Lights the flag victory here in Pirelli. And he will be delighted with that. And as he said, quite rightly has a chance of the championship then going into the final weekend at Suzuka. Yamatatsu keeping him very honest right up until all was said and done. And we'll see how that final weekend will unfold, hopefully in drier conditions compared to what we've had here this weekend, because as you can see, it has been very wet indeed. Right, let's go down
and continuing,
and
we
catch
have the
up
race
then with our
winner
next
for the
winner.
Pirelli AM class, Ken Bo. Congratulations.
ありがとうございます。
So definitely very difficult conditions. You're really close out there. It looks like you were also catching the leader of the race, but maybe you pulled away a little bit. How was it out there? さあ非常に難しいコンディションで、途中ね本当上位どんどん上位に対してペースも近づいてきてギャップも縮まってきましたが、最後はちょっとこうクラスの中でやはり優勝を狙うために少し落とした感じですかね。
そうですね。前結局抜きたかったんですけど難しそうだったんでコーチがもうやめてって言ってました。
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could have probably gone for overall victory, but my coach told me, don't do it. Just, take it easy. Don't disturb the cars up on the different category and just secure the victory. さあ、ということで、next round will be Suzuka final race. You are leading the championship. Do you think you'll make the title? さあ、最初鈴鹿戦ですけれども、チャンピオンに王手がかかってますが、いかがですか？
早めに決めれるようにチームとしても頑張りたいです。はい。
Yeah, definitely. I'll go for it as a team. Team Nauru, go for the win. おめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。
Kenbo, the winner in Pirelli AM, and a superb result for him. Started in Copper Shell, of course,
And
for the
finally,
opening
we
two
have
rounds
the
of the
race winner
season
of the
in
shell
Suzuka.
category, Yi Hang Tan. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So again, you're winning everything recently, and surprisingly, also your overall P3. It looks like we have to switch categories for you. なんとシェルクラスにもかかわらず総合3位ということで、なんかクラス変更しないといけないぐらい早いですね。
I know. I think I will stay. It's the last race for the next race, anyways. I will stay for the championship.
そうですね。いやまだカテゴリーは変えなくていいです。僕はシェルカテゴリーで十分楽しんでいるのでということで。It was your first year this year, and you're improving every race. It looks like you have so much experience in the past, but is it true that you really raced this year for the first time? 今年本当にイハンタン選手なんかルーキーですか？なんかまるで経験者のような本当スピードですが。
Yeah, it's the first time. Yeah.
And first time in Fuji.
Yes, first time in Fuji as well.
そうですね。いや本当に私は今年ルーキーとして世界チャレンジ参加させていただいているんで、はい本当今年はデビューイヤーとなります。さあということで last race、we're going into Suzuka. You're leading the championship. You think you can secure a title? 最終戦鈴鹿に向けて意気込みをお願いします。
I don't know, but I'll try my best.
わかりませんがとにかくベストを尽くしたいと思います。以上です。Back to you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's a man of few words, is Yi Hang-tan. Great result, though, nonetheless. Does his talking on the racetrack, doesn't he? 11 points the gap he had going into this race, and now has increased that advantage after finishing P3. Very impressive result indeed from the young Malaysian driver. We heard from Kenbo, who is also still leading the championship in Trofeo Pirelli AM, and he will also increase that advantage after finishing in front of Cold Max and Zed Falcon, and then also Akihiro Suzuki having taken the win. But Yamatatsu, incidentally, of course, is the man who leads the championship going into the final race in Trofeo Pirelli. He had a 9-point swing over Isasaki and a 10-point swing over Shirasaki. And 15.5 points over Suzuki. So, by my reckoning, just trying to do quick mental arithmetic, which has never been my particular strong point, I'll be honest with you, Yamatatsu is going to hold on to that lead of the championship, but I think that's going to come down. Well, bad mental arithmetic notwithstanding, it's time to get the podium celebrations then underway here at the Fuji Speedway after race 2 of Ferrari Challenge Japan in Trofeo Pirelli, Pirelli Am and Copper Shell classes. Of course, 3 different categories, so 3 different podiums. And a total of 9 of them will make their way onto the top 3 steps. So first set of podiums then underway. Great job from Yamatatsu to finish in P2 of that race, but Akihiro Suzuki, what a fantastic drive, lights out to the checkered flag. You can't ask for more than that from the man who finished yesterday's race in last to then turn it around and finish on the top step of the podium here this afternoon. Very strong feat indeed. There are our top 3 finishers on the podium: Akihiro Suzuki, Yamatatsu and Kentaro. Now time for the national anthems. The national anthem of Japan plays out for our winner, Akihiro Suzuki. Closing down on that lead in the championship. 48 years old he is, racing for the Auto Speciale team. And 20 years of racing experience he has under his belt, and put that to good use here this afternoon. It's his 5th win of the season so far. The difficulty he's had is he's had a couple of DNFs this year, one at Okayama and one in Motegi, which has compromised his lead in the championship, or challenge in the championship, I should say, rather, which is why he wasn't leading it coming into this race. And now the trophy is being presented. There is the second place man on the left hand side of your screen of Yamatatsu, driving the number 77. His debut in the Ferrari Challenge Japan series in 2025 did Yamatatsu. Moved up to the Trofeo Pirelli class though after Okayama. Before Okayama, I do beg your pardon. And very well-deserved second place here this afternoon. P3 for Kentaro. He could be pretty pleased with that, the 43-year-old. Now the podium photos for the 3rd but last time this season, with one more weekend left to go in Ferrari Challenge Japan in 2026. The circus rolls on to Suzuka at the end of July. And they'll be hoping and praying to be able to leave the umbrellas at home that weekend. As the camera flash illuminates in the ever-fading light here at the Fuji circuit. Time for the champagne to be sprayed by our top 3 finishers in the Trofeo Pirelli class. Of still two further podiums to go with Pirelli Am and Copper Shell to come. We'll that in a couple of moments. But for now, our top three finishers: Kentaro in third place, Yamatatsu in P2, and Akihiro Suzuki as the winner. Great job from all involved in Trofeo Pirelli. Can't wait to see what it means for the championship with just 2 more races to go in 2026. Well, I have to say, I'm glad that racing action has concluded before the cloud came down even further, because yeah, visibility, well, you could only buy it if you could afford it, really, couldn't you, out there now? It is, it's not nice conditions to be going racing like that. And very grateful to be sat in a nice dry commentary box at the moment, as the drivers would have been sat in their nice dry cars after that race. A full credit to the marshals and also, in particular, the camera operators who've been out in all sorts of weather this weekend. Not pleasant at all to be stood out there for the vast majority of the day, but full credit to them. Next podium about to get underway then here. Time for Pirelli Am drivers to make their way on to the rostrum. Here's how it looks then. Kidd in third position in the number 51. Second place for Zed Falcon. And then first place in Pirelli Am for Kenbo. Great drive, and the box office seats that he was treated to right at the very end of that race as well. Hugely exciting action that we saw in the mid-pack, in the mid-half of the top 10. Culminates with these 3 drivers on the podium in Pirelli Am. Right then, now time for the national anthems once again. National Anthem Japan plays out here for the Pirelli Am podium in Fuji. And there are your top 3 finishers. Kidd in third place, Zed Falcon in second, and Kenbo in first position. Kenbo leading the championship coming into this weekend. There is Kidd, though, meanwhile. Something of a sporadic year, though, but 2 podiums in 2 days for the number 51. Will be something for him to smile about. Zed Falcon there in third position. This is his 3rd podium finish of the year. And for the winner of Kenbo, that's his 6th win of 2026 in the Pirelli Am class. Hugely well done to the number 70. You can be happy with that one after all is said and done. So podium photos underway then once again in front of the crowd for Pirelli Am. Copper Shell podium still to come for the drivers also. Fans enjoyed that one, and not surprised at all. So there's your top three drivers in Pirelli, and we'll of course run you through all of the race results as well as the championship standings prior to the end of the broadcast here today, and give you an idea of exactly how it sits with just 2 races left to run in the 2026 season. Champagne flies then for our top 3 finishers in Pirelli Am for Kidd, Zed Falcon and McKenbo. They can be pretty happy with how things have worked out there. We'll wait and see what it's going to look like though for the remainder of 2026. Who will be taking the fight for the title down to the wire at the end of July. So one more podium left to run then here for Copper Shell. And then we'll show you some highlights and run you through all of the positions here after racing has finished in Fuji. Really were treated to some brilliant action up and down the field. In terms of Copper Shell though, the real standout performer this weekend has been Yi Hang Tun, qualified in P3 on the grid here this afternoon, and that's where he went on to finish. Very well-deserved result after fighting so well. And we heard him in the post-race interview, not saying too much, but saying that he's ready to take the fight to the end for the championship going into Suzuka. As the rain continues to fall here at Fuji, it is time for our final podium celebration then. Copper Shell drivers on their way to the rostrum. 3rd place for Naoryu. Good job in the 110. 2nd place for Hirata, the 177. Katsuya doing a fantastic job. Finished P2 in class here. But the standout performer is Yi Hang Tun. Finished as the top Copper Shell runner by a long way. P3 overall in this race, and a victory giving him a chance at the championship going into the final weekend of the season in Suzuka at the end of July. As the 3 drivers stand aloft the podium, we're now ready then for the national anthem of Malaysia. Top 3 then in Copper Shell here at Fuji, standing aloft the podium. A 5th win of the year for Yi Hang Tun. A real chance at the championship going into the final round with 15 points available in the races, in each of the races rather I should say, so 30 points in total over the course of that weekend. Drivers celebrating, holding their trophies aloft for Naoryu, as well as Katsuya Hirata. There is Yi Hang Tun. Very well-deserved result from him. European version, of course, the winning dealer here this weekend in the Copper Shell class. And for one final time here at Fuji, podium photos taking place as well. Well, to the applause of the crowd and the fans here at Fuji. As I say, they have been treated to some very exciting racing action, which culminates with this copper shell podium. And as I say, we'll be running you through the standings as well after the conclusion of that race, and just reminding you how it all looks with 2 races left to go at Suzuka. Handshakes all round, congratulations all round, and time for the photographers to run and take cover and make sure they've got their waterproof covers on the cameras, because the champagne is about to fly once again here in Ferrari Challenge Japan. Nestled in the eastern foothills of Mount Fuji we are, and well, that was a mountainous performance from Yi Hang-tun to take the win in that class by such a commanding margin. P3 on the road as well. Great qualifying, really set him up nicely for that race here this afternoon, and he can be very proud of the results that he'll be taking back home to Malaysia. Will he be taking a title back home there at the end of this season? We will await to find out. The final weekend of July for these drivers. Well, an eerie silence now falls over the Fuji Speedway circuit, and I have to say, really enjoyed the action we saw this weekend. It was a big shame for the drivers in Pirelli Am and Copper Shell to not get a proper race yesterday. I know it went green under the safety car, but we didn't get any side-by-side or overtakes of action or anything along the lines of that, because it was all under the safety car before it got red flagged. And as such, I'm really glad the drivers got the opportunity to do that today. And also, we got a chance to see their skill and prowess in these wet conditions at the circuit. And one can only hope it is a little bit drier the next time we go racing. So celebrations all now done and dusted as we look at some wide shots here of the Fuji Speedway. As I say, we'll bring you the championship standings and confirmation also of the race results. So nothing coming up on our timing screen about Yamatatsu, so one must assume there that they've decided to not have any further action with that. But let's have a look then, shall we, at some highlights from that race. Well, it's been wet all weekend, and so the theme continued for race 2 in Pirelli Am and in Copper Shell here at Fuji. As such, the race started under the safety car. Eventually, we did go green flag racing as Akihiro Suzuki led Yamatatsu across the timing line. There was a big eye on Miyazawa, actually, who started down in 17th and last position on the grid as he had to fight his way through after not setting a time in qualifying. Yi Hang-tun held on to 3rd position, as we saw. This is Miyazawa making a bit of a half-attempted move up the inside there on Yu for position. Eventually, though, he would be able to fight it back, going through 100R. Late on the brakes he went in towards the left-hander of turn 6, the hairpin. Slightly wide he ran on the apex of the corner, which opened the door back up for Yu to try and fight his way back through, but ultimately the Chinese driver was not able to resist the advances of Miyazawa as he moved his way up into 13th position. This, though, is the win for Akihiro Suzuki. He came under increasing pressure from Yamatatsu right towards the end of that race, but would hold on to take the win overall and, of course, the class win. Yi Hang-tun was 3rd on the road, but 1st in Copper Shell, and Kenbo over the line P6 of the checkered flag, but the winner of Trofeo Pirelli Am here at Fuji. Podium celebrations underway, of course, here in the wet conditions. And let's get then confirmation of the race results following the conclusion of race 2 then here. So in the Trofeo Pirelli class, it's Akihiro Suzuki ahead of Yamatatsu and Kintaro, then Shirasaki, Isasaki and Yasuku Miyazawa. That's how your top 6 looks in that class. 6 drivers in that category, so that's how it sits. In terms of Pirelli Am, it's Kenbo who took the win from Zed Falcon and Kidd. Then it's Cold Max in 4th position ahead of the Korean driver Phil Kim. He was down to 15th on the road and the last of the classified runners in the Pirelli Am class. Out of the 17 that started this race, a couple of drivers behind him, of course, in the Copper Shell class. And in that class, it was Yi Hang Tan who took the win from Katsuya Hirata. Naoryu in third position over Liang Chen Yu, who we saw squabbling with Miyazawa in the race. Otsuki and Alex Fox completing the finishes here this afternoon. And here's what it means with 30 points left on the board and 2 races to go in 2026. Yamatatsu leads the championship now from Akihiro Suzuki, who elevates himself up from P4 to now just an 8-point deficit. So 3 drivers mathematically all still in contention for the title. Miyazawa's challenge sadly comes to an end. No points up from 6th position at the end of that race means that he will not go any further in that championship fight. In Trofeo Pirelli Am, it's Kenbo that has a 34-point lead. So to my reckoning now, he is the Trofeo Pirelli Am champion of 2026 for Kenbo, which is fantastic news there for him. However, it's much tighter in Copper Shell. Yang Han Tan is now the leader, the Malaysian driver, after taking an emphatic win in the Copper Shell class ahead of Naoryu as well as Hirata. And you can see just how tight it is in terms of those margins between the top 3, with some 30 points left to play for in those final 2 races at Suzuka. Well then, we have really been treated to some phenomenal racing action here this weekend at the Fuji Speedway. Thank you so much for joining us here for Ferrari Challenge Japan. The show continues at the final weekend of July in Suzuka. My name's been Tom Brooks. It's been a pleasure to bring this to you. Take care, and we'll see you for the title deciders in Suzuka here for Ferrari Challenge Japan. Take care.